Confiscated correspondence of Khan, editor of the podcast Quadrant, to unknown intended recipient. The most useless phrase in the language of podcasting has always been, and will forever be, edit that out. Mistakes are a necessary evil to secure the content, nothing more. Save that for the bloopers.
Welcome back to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who read a lot of books, and Jon and Kyle, their real-life shadowed daddies. I'm Jon.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Con. We're continuing Onyx Storm today from the Empyrean Series by Rebecca Yarros with chapters 20 to 28. This is a book club style podcast, meaning there will be no spoilers here for future chapters. So if you've only read the first 28 chapters of Onyx Storm, this is a safe space to process while we discuss. Share this pod with your book besties and peer pressure them into reading this with you too.
Heads up, literally. Onyx Storm is a new adult book, meaning it is written for audiences 18 and up. Therefore, our conversations about this book are also best suited to adults. We'll be discussing themes and quotes from this section that include heads on platters, more broken furniture, ayo, and Halden.
In case you missed it, we've just given our membership tiers a makeover in honor of our first birthday on Patreon. Our $5 tier is now called Book Bestie, where we invite you to be one of our book besties by being in our book club, joining us for live bookish events, talking all things bookish in our exclusive Discord, and more. And our $10 tier is now called Found Family, where you are not only one of our book besties with all those perks, but we invite you to join our Found Family and get early ad-free podcast episodes, merch discounts, and voting privileges on upcoming books and events, plus so much more. Check out our Patreon to see which tier fits you best today.
And if you'd like to get to know us in person, come with us to Enchanticon 2025. From August 15th to 17th in St. Louis, Missouri, the four of us will be attending Enchanticon as event influencers. We'll be leading the fandom foundations for Throne of Glass, joining you for tons of super fun, super nerdy sessions about all things fantasy, and dancing the night away at the Far, Far Away ball. The whole weekend is going to be amazing. We want you to come. Use our code FRIENDS15 for 15% off your tickets at enchanticon.com right now. I mean it. Do it right now. Pause this episode and come back. Love you.
Lastly, the best way to support any podcast is by writing a review on Audible or Apple Podcasts. It only takes a moment and makes a lasting impact, helping our show reach more book besties. Here's a recent 5-star review on Audible from our new bestie, Ray.Ray42, titled, "I look forward to your jokes and insights every week." And she continues, "I started listening to your podcast on Apple Podcasts before eventually joining your Patreon and watching the early access videos over there. Sometimes it can feel daunting when a podcast releases a new episode and it's a couple hours long, but every week I look forward to your episodes and I want them to be longer. It feels like I'm sitting and chatting with friends when I watch your episodes and I want to contribute, but alas, that's not how podcasts work. I love hearing all your insights, thoughts, theories, and jokes about the chapters you read. I look forward to following along and laughing with you for months and months to come. Love you guys, and I can't wait to tune in next week." Dang, she gave a little peace sign emoji and a heart emoji. Awesome.
That's I love you
Ray,
emoji.
Ray. I love you
Aw.
emoji. Yes, there you go.
That's the rock on emoji.
Rock
I love
on.
you too.
Very nice.
Thanks, Ray Ray.
Thanks.
Ray Ray.
Right.
I don't know.
It could be Rai.
That's why I honestly thought until you said Ray Ray.
Ray.
And I was like, it makes
Yeah.
more sense to be Ray Ray. I don't know why I was
Yeah, I
thinking
guess
Ray
it
Ray.
does.
Rai.
I thought
Rai-Rai's
Rai
fun. Either way,
Rai,
she's the
Rai.
best.
All right. Now it's over to Con for the pronunciation guide. Take it away, Con.
And welcome back to Con's Declassified Fantasy Pronunciation Guide, where we're referencing the audiobooks narrated by Rebecca Soler to highlight all the new names and places mentioned in this chapter section. In places this week, we have Matthias Deverelli's Capital City, Tomes and Tales, the name of Norell's bookstore, Unbriel, the closest main isle to Deverelli, and then some other isles mentioned are Hedotis, Zelna, and Loisum, the Surlian Sea, and Valia, a mid-sized city 200 miles west of the Bay of Malik. For characters, we meet Captain Jarrett, Urson, which is Norell's grandson, and Leona, Norell's daughter. Colonel Ashby was the commander of the Athbean outpost when the Midnight Massacre happened. Then we meet King Cortland IV, ruler of Deverelli, master of the trade, keeper of the troughs, justice of the tribunal, heir of the antiquities, and crazy-eyed bitch. We also meet King Cortland's White Panthers, Shira, Shayna, and Shora. There is a mention of a character named Berset, although I'm unclear on if this is just a guard or if it's the king's trade minister. And then the newly promoted wing leader for Second Wing is Timon Kagaso. In texts and excerpts, we have subjugated the second uprising of the Croveland people by Lieutenant Colonel Asher Sorengale, mentions of the dark side of magic, red regalia, the scourge of our times, Sir Zimley's guide to Deverelli fauna, and the nightmare-inducing A Study in the Anatomy of the Enemy by Captain Dominic Prischel. And then Unbriel, Isle of Doon by Second Lieutenant Asher Daxton, which we will be discussing later. For griffins this week, I just have Sovadoon, which is Drake Cordella's griffin, also called Sova for short. Sova means owl, and Doon or Dun can mean brown or dark-haired. I don't know that we've gotten a description of what his griffin looks like, but they call it Sova. And then in events and world building, we have Amarales, the term Norel calls Violet and the Quest Squad. Phalarinia moths. These are large bioluminescent insects with translucent wings that light up when they feed from honeycomb. They are poisonous and they don't exist on the continent, though they do have a sister species there. And that's all we got for you today. Over to you, Juan.
Okay, we're jumping right in. Violet has to debrief with the Cenarium and also talk about next steps moving forward for the trip to Deverelli. Now that they have the citrine, Ree and Riddick are with her on the way when Riddick gets real, wanting to go with her because every time one of Second Squad hasn't been by Violet's side, something bad has happened. And then he shows off his new water freezing skill, which is pretty sweet. They head inside the hall when Halden tries to give orders plus a new task force build. Violet boldly and confidently replies, no. She's had enough, rightfully so, and eventually gets her way, forming her own squad on her terms. Oh, and did I mention she puts Markham and General Atos in their place? Glorious, wonderfully glorious. They'll be leaving day after tomorrow. They head to Corden and are greeted by Takaris. They're dead on their feet and need rest. Takara suggests and offers to sail Halden over to Deverelli while the others get a little sleep and meet them there on their mounts. Then he gives a word of warning to Xaden and Violet about King Cortland and his obsession with collecting, or more like stealing, quote-unquote rare things. The next day they cross the ocean and feel the palpable cutoff of their magic. Even Terran and Andarna feel the difference as they feed off the strength of it. As Andarna clips onto Terran and they fight a little harder to stay airborne, Violet feels the pathway to Xaden cut off as well. They make it to Corden, everyone touching down at Takaris' banner on the beach. Violet finds out that she's the only one who can still talk with Terran and Andarna. Everyone else cut off to their dragons, just like their magic. The mounts take off to get something to eat. The rest of them head to the house to get some rest. Xaden taking some time to enjoy the view and the relaxation of no magic and no pull to channel. They finally head into the city to look for the merchant that Violet's dad mentioned. They get a nice little tour of the district of shops and like places to eat and drink. They ask around and find out where Norel's shop is located. They find it. Violet, Mira, Dane, and Xaden head inside. Vi asks for Norel, and some guys yell Firebringers and just attack stupidly and are quickly dispatched. And Norel comes out and greets Violet. She says, "You must be Asher Sorengale's daughter." She has the books, but Violet must answer a few questions first and get them right for her to hand them over. She does get through it. The final question, very comically satisfying Norel's little gossiply romantic interests, and a short time later they leave with 6 tomes from her dad, all password protected. Back at the manor and finally getting some more rest and a bath, plus no magic or professor status to complicate matters, we finally get into this week's segment of Emoji Erotica.
It's about time.
It might be the longest one so far.
Heyo.
Haha.
His signet's not the only thing growing.
All right. Wow. And she turned so red.
So red.
Bold comment
My
from our resident blusher.
I'm crying. Okay. That
She's
was
as
good.
orange as her headphones. All right. Woman with towel, man with towel, chess pawn, chess pawn. Couch with lamp, chair, thumbs up, praying hands, 2 hands, chess pawn, tongue, tooth, praying hands, like frowny face, X and wizard, open mouth, question mark, hand, eggplant, check mark, mouth, flower, tongue, rose, 2 fingers, the speak no evil monkey, a violin, a bow, like a bow and arrow, 2 fingers, tongue, wave, hand, eggplant, door, question mark, check mark, boxing glove, ruler, talking head, stars, talking head, sleepy Z's, boxing glove, parentheses, chair, chain link breaking, end parentheses, candy, yum face, the little zip mouth, finger pointing down, rose, wave, the little swirly eyes, squiggly mouth emoji, exasperated face, boxing glove, baseball, exasperated face. And that's this week's segment of Emoji Erotica.
Wow, there were some new ones in there.
Oh my.
Wow.
Man.
Good job, John.
If you can get the baseball at the end, good for you.
Great job, sport.
That's
Challenge accepted. Go team.
Always go for the baseball.
That would be a master deducer right there. Anyway.
Oh.
Sounds like
All
a
right,
fancy
moving
title.
on. As they recover, a bunch of people show up at their door. They've run into a bit of an issue. Cortland has decided to quote-unquote keep Halden, whatever the hell that means, and Xaden is the only aristocrat around that he'll see from their group. So him and Violet decide to go. They receive a warm welcome at the palace. Xaden and Violet get an audience with Cortland. They head inside and try to find out what's going on. Halden continues to be disrespectful and honestly just straight up an idiot, even after Cortland drives a dagger into his hand. Cortland introduces his 3 white pet panthers and then reveals the dinner he has prepared for said pets. Halden's guard, apparently found in their treasury trying to nab a few choice items at a written request by Halden himself, trying to steal back apparently what was theirs to begin with, according to Halden, that had been wrongly gifted to the Isles from Navarre. Xaden and Violet try to save the conversation, Xaden trying to produce what he's had in his pack, but Violet stops him as she also has something to offer. But Halden won't shut the up, and Cortland ends up ordering them to be killed, except Takaris, of course. All hell breaks loose as his guards attack. They fight their way through. Halden gets knocked out in the process. Xaden and Violet get kind of trapped, and without magic, it's just not looking good. But then Xaden channels with the help of a rune and kills the remaining guards to save them. As Violet helps him settle and hide his eyes, she directs her attention to Cortland to reopen negotiations. He's reluctant at first until he spies Andarna with one of his panthers in her mouth. Violet ends up gifting him Andarna's egg to help seal the deal, and then he produces another offer that she might be interested in. A few days later, they're back in battle brief at Basgiath. Second Squad is talking during Davaris' lecture, which makes her call on Violet and ask about the Venon's new movements that they are supposed to be talking about in class. Ever since the wards went up in Eratia, the Venon have changed course, and Violet and Devera agree that is most likely because they are moving into position, expecting the wards to fail at Eratia. A week later, Violet has yet to see Xaden since their return. The squad has been hard at work with classes, maneuvers, and as much research as possible. They're in the fighting pit one day for another round of Signet sparring. Carr leading class when some of the second squad first years approached Vi and the others wanting to help. Vi finally gives in and gives them some research to look at and report back on. Some second and third years of second squad are arguing about the strategy for traveling around the Isles, like which islands to hit first, how long it'll take, etc., etc. Violet suggests basically disobeying orders, just going to the Isles and not coming back or reporting at all until they find the seventh breed. While they're still discussing, Xaden shows up, and Violet notices that he no longer has golden flecks, but amber in his eyes. As he goes off to talk to Garrick, Bodhi suggests she take Garrick with him in case she can't do what's necessary if needed. Violet contemplates for a moment, her thoughts interrupted as a first year on the mat begins to channel to protect herself. And Panchek urges Carr, who promptly rushes over and stabs her with an alloy-hilted dagger. And that's where we end up, folks, at the end of this chapter section.
Woo. Wow.
Yeah.
What a stopping spot.
Yowza.
Amazing as always, John.
Thanks.
Let's dive right in.
I got the first note for this week. This is
Man,
Violet's...
you're really diving.
I'm really diving in here. Violet's point of view here on how Jack is happy to tell her all about his ASIM progression, but he won't budge on who a sage is or really anything useful. But my note here was, as he's continuing to teach her about things Venon, I was like, I hope there's not some kind of code among Venon teachers or something, because Stephanie Wright has wanted to
About that.
she's assuming that like Violet will become Venom, and she wants her to choose her as her teacher. And I'm like, I hope there's not some kind of code where like that ends up happening, but Jack's like, I've been teaching her this entire time. And they're like, oh no, we have to have Jack be her teacher. We talked about this for a minute, but I don't think that would be possible, because I think she even mentioned in the conversation like he was telling her or won't tell her about his sage. So he's obviously not at that point yet. So
Yeah, but like, why the hell's he still alive? If not for something crazy like that.
I know, that's what I'm
I
saying.
feel like in a book that everyone dies, he won't die. Like, he's still
Freaking
there.
die, Jack.
I have a brief note about
the
this
heck?
on like character thoughts at the very end
okay.
about Jack.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
that's basically what it is. But
That he won't die.
yeah, it's like, so don't forget about that guy. He's apparently not dead yet. So.
So there's a mention here, just like super brief in passing, about Sawyer's new metal prosthetic leg. And I had been waiting for this since Iron Flame. As soon as he lost his leg, I was wondering if he'd be able to use his metal, what do they call it?
Metallurgy.
His metal allergies.
Metal
Metallurgy.
allergies?
I meant like metal manipulation sickness.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to call it. But I'd been wondering if that could somehow help with like a prosthetic leg. And so I was kind of excited when they like first mentioned that, because I was hoping that would be like something easier for him to use, because initially he had a wooden one.
I mean, I think it'd be dope. Like, if he's strapped in well on his dragon and flying around, he could literally reshape that to whatever he needs and use it. So like he
that's
could
a good
reshape
idea.
it to a sword or anything.
He could be like Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon, where it has a little hook that hooks into the toothlesses, because he also has no leg.
There you go.
Spoilers.
Oh, so sorry. I have a note about Sawyer later, but I feel like since we're talking about him now and about this moment, I just like randomly they bring this moment up in some other future chapter about his leg and if he's involved in class or not and all the things. And I just thought randomly, like, as obviously unlucky it is to lose your leg, he's extremely lucky that he did in that moment where it's like post the world finding out all about Venom and stuff. Because if this happened to him first year or Violet's first year or whatever, like they tried to kill Violet just because she was weak, and she's literally completely normal. As we're like with Sawyer without a leg, like nobody would be patient waiting for him to catch up or join flight
Yeah.
maneuvers again, or just somebody would have just tried to kill him to take his dragon or something.
Interesting.
As where because he's potentially like post this when like they're not trying to kill each other kind of a phase of Basgiath, he's getting a chance to recover and slowly
Yeah.
get back into class and like be involved in everything. So
Good point.
I feel like he probably would have just died if this happened
Yeah.
earlier.
I definitely didn't think of it that way, but I too have been waiting for the metal leg. I think I even mentioned it to you like off podcast at one point, Lauren. Where I was like,
Yeah.
if he gets a metal leg, that could be so useful. He could like,
Yeah.
like John said, just reshape it into a dagger, and it would almost be like having one strapped to your calf, or I don't know how far up the leg it. I don't remember how far up the leg he lost, but, or even
Under
just
the knee.
kneeing someone and then making a spike appear at the top
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
knee.
That too. Yep.
Or just kicking and your foot flies off like a bullet. I can kick from any distance.
He's like the Wolverine, but with one leg.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is also in the moment when Riddick is walking with them and says that he can keep her Violet safe and he wants to like be on Quest Squad for forever and all the things. I just think it's really interesting that he says, I can keep you safe, and he's insisting doing this, and he's holding the unpeeled orange in his hand. While like, yes, he shows us what cool things he can do with the orange. I just think it's funny that with Jack being this like horrible person to her all the time, like of all the things, he's like, I'll keep you safe because I'm holding an orange. Like, I just thought that was funny. Like
Always got
obviously
one
he
on
does
me.
something cool with it. Yeah.
I loved how this scene was written, because on my first read, they kept mentioning the orange. I was like, what the hell is he doing with the orange? Because he's holding it, and they mentioned that, and then he puts his other hand over top of it, and I was like, why is he just like caressing this orange in his hand? What is happening? But then it turns out to be really cool.
God forbid a man have a hobby. Jeez.
He's just joining the whole Fruit Leathers.
Came from the best guy at the fruit market.
Yep.
Well, speaking of him, I really liked his line where he said, in the same conversation, it really pisses me off when you guys act like my sense of humor somehow lessens my ability to show up for our squad. Because I hard related to that. Because I feel like there were a lot of times where we were like, oh, he's just like a jokey guy. I was like, no, I can do stuff.
He's just the best.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, in the same conversation, Riddick explains that he could potentially freeze the water in someone's body. And I just needed a moment to acknowledge this. I'm so here for all the signets developing. Love him in general, but super stoked about this whole situation.
Yeah, pretty sweet. And they finally make it to like the big hall. She walks in and it says Atos and Markham flank Halden, who sits in the center of the group listening to whatever lies Markham whispers. And I just wrote, ugh, great. Like I was not expecting like them or anybody from Basgiath to be there, I guess. So that was just kind of surprising and disappointing. Yeah, gross too. Yep.
And of course that like Halden's two main advisor people would be Atos and Markham. It's just,
right.
It was just awful.
And then Violet says the quote-unquote extras in the room, so like Riddick and Drake, are there at her request. And the Duchess of Moraine says, you can't be serious. And I was like, are you serious? Like, it's literally just a couple of extra people. Like, calm down, chill out. Are these talks really that big of a deal? But, and then, of course, they kind of give her their terms, and Halden gives her, like, what the hell is it? The scroll or whatever with the orders. And she reads it through, and she eventually says, I said no. She rips the orders in half. No to your commander. No to your selections. No to searching Eratia. No. And I was just like, oh, hell yeah, Violet. Like, let's go. I was so amped up.
For real. I think it was more at potentially like Kat and Drake, since they're the flyers, more than it would be like maybe even Riddick.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
Like it was more just like a, flyers versus dragons kind of a thing. I did just find it super interesting here too that conveniently, while these people had to do this and these people had to do that, it only left Atos and Markham to go search Eratia. Like, because that's the only thing that made sense. I was like, of course. I hate those guys. The worst. Yep.
Yeah. So Mira comes in late to this meeting and apologizes, saying, hell of a headwind out of the north. What did I miss? And my first read note here was just, ugh, I feel like all these crazy weather things are because of Thumbelina. I couldn't remember Theophany's name.
Thumbelina. I feel like it's a lot of it too is just like the mama's gone, and so it's like everyone keeps mentioning.
Yeah,
like
there's been like a lot of little mentions of it, and yeah, I didn't even think about that on my first read about it being that Lilith is gone, but I kept thinking about Theophany then, like every time somebody said something about it.
Their mom is no longer the wind beneath their wings.
Oh,
stop! Stop!
Oh no,
Kyle.
Okay, on a happier note, I freaking loved this iconic badass line from Violet to Markham where she says, you do not speak, not to me. As far as I'm concerned, you have the credibility of a drunkard and the integrity of a rat. You dare complain about missing 6 years of information on Eratia when you've hidden centuries of our continent's history from public knowledge. I was like, oh, go off, queen. Absolutely. I freaking love this. And then I put, just because this specific sentence for some reason gave me the same vibe as Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I put a gif in here of him going, your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberries.
Same exact scene.
I've parked in a general direction.
Now go away or I shall taunt you a second time. Anyway, my most important note from this section was... The most important was Mira meeting Drake Cordello for the first time, and she immediately knees him in the groin and threatens him, and I wrote, I hope they fall in love.
Yes, and I wrote, oh my gosh, I'm so here for that, because that had never occurred to me, and I got so excited when I read your note about this.
Yeah, as soon as somebody says his name, I think they just said Drake, and she's immediately like, Drake Cordella. It's like she shouts. I immediately highlighted that and just went, enemies to lovers? Like, first line. Hadn't even need him yet. Like, in the groin is just first thing she yelled. But also, we find out here in this moment that Drake is the one who changed the wards or like manipulated the wards at Montserrat when they were there that first time, and that put like Violet and the whole squad in danger. And I had this whole like theory about how Dane was winded and maybe it was Dane and he was the worst and all the things, but apparently it was Drake and some of the flyers. So sorry, Dane.
We'll go from she need him to she needs him.
Yes.
Anyway, on to chapter 21. They talk about it a lot. This is one of the first times, but I'll just mention it here. I feel like the Griffin's inability to keep up while flying is mentioned and elaborated too often to not have like a greater consequence later. Because I feel like every time they fly in this chapter, they're like, oh man, they're barely holding on. I'm like, something's going to happen.
For me, it was when it said carrying is a loose term for the baskets Halden and his guard dangle in, held by the griffin's claws. And just the mental picture of Halden in a literal basket. And then for my mental picture, it was literally like a picnic basket style kind of a thing. I don't know.
Hot air balloon basket.
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
what I
I
was
was
But
getting.
yeah,
Yeah.
Connor put a hot air balloon. We did like the Valentine's or whatever at Valentine's Day, and she put that little hot air balloon basket. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense than what I'm picturing in my head.
I think it said it was like a few feet wide. Like he could sit in there, but
And then this is like kind of going with what Kyle just said about the griffins flying and stuff. In this one, it's Andarna, and she's always talking about the weather that she prefers. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't like the cold, she does like the hot, like all of those things. And we learned this about the dragons throughout this whole thing of like which one kind of likes what. And Violet keeps being like, oh, that makes sense because their hatching ground is this place, and that's what they would prefer. But it's like nobody's thinking, oh, Andarna says she likes the warmth. Like, let's go there. Like, that's
right?
apparently not
Nice.
common sense or a common thought,
Yeah.
even though it is whenever you're talking about any other dragon. But
Yeah.
she does seem to like the warm weather. They're obviously in somewhere warm, so it makes you think they're at least on the right path compared to going across the
Yeah.
Emerald Sea or
Oh, yeah.
whatever that previous conversation was. So
Well, they finally arrive in Corden, and something that Takaris mentions when he first greets them, he says, "Forgive the additional security. We're one of the only major cities left standing in the south." And I was just thinking, like, it seems very suspicious, especially when you've been like capturing Venin. I don't know. It just seems kind of odd that they're apparently one of the only ones still around. And then
say that again.
exactly. Seems kind of weird that they're leaving. But then right before, he goes on to say a word to the wise. He says to Xaden and Violet, "I may collect rarities, but King Cortland absconds with them. Do not wander off far from each other. Do not advertise what a rare jewel you are. And at all costs, do not make a deal you cannot keep." And in this moment, obviously, I was like, dang, if Takaris is warning them about this, I mean, it's about to be a shit show is what I wrote when they meet with this dude. Like that just made me think, like, what can we expect with this guy?
Yeah, and whenever they are there too, Xaden making sure he's not considered a professor on this trip, so he can sleep with Violet. And I was like, I'm not totally sure if that's how that should work with like school chaperones on a school trip. But understandable, I guess. Like, I get where he's coming from, but I'm like, I don't think the school system should still allow that. Like, you're off campus, sure, but I mean,
I
I
it's
loved it.
college. I don't know. Like, is it different?
I thought it was funny. He's the literal Duke of Tyrandor. Who gives a shit?
General Atos.
I mean, that's the other thing is like,
about
if
it.
anything, just don't draw attention to it. You have like 5 other titles. Just
Right.
like go to your room.
Well, during that conversation, right before they head to their room, Violet says in her mind, "Will you still keep me if I crawl up the stairs?" She says she asks Tarn because she's like so tired and gonna fall over, whatever. And Xaden responds with, "You're not crawling." She says, "Oh, wrong pathway. Gods, I'm really in trouble here." And I was like, "No, Rebecca, you tricked me the first time with his insignet, whatever, with these little," she says it and he kind of finishes the phrases like, "I am not falling for that again. This is not her doing the wrong pathway, whatever. We've heard this before. Don't get at me with that." And I have more on this later. I'm fired up about it.
It's your next note.
Oh, JK, it is my next note. I have it again later. Okay. But then, yes, when they're in the room, she says, "It feels so right to be in his arms," to herself. And he responds out loud with, "Because it is." And she says, "I didn't say that out loud." He says, "It must have been thought down the bond because I wasn't pushing for your intentions." And she says, "Or your signet is growing." And then they immediately get interrupted again. And I'm like, he's clearly full on intrinsic now, if he wasn't
Yeah.
already kind of before. And he's just reading everybody's mind, which is wild to think about, and what he potentially knows and could
And it's on
potentially
accident.
do. And yeah, he's like not even aware, I guess, that it's happening.
Supposedly.
Supposedly.
Yeah, that's true.
Red flag.
I feel
anyone?
like
He's kept
the
secrets
red flag guy.
before.
Yeah. I feel like we're made to believe he has so many other bigger issues than training his signet, you know what I mean, or whatever. And so it's almost like seems like it's like hidden, and it's just like under these like little side one-liners here and there. But I'm convinced he is a full-on intrinsic.
I'm with you.
Okay, good. I'm not alone. I'm glad I'm not alone. But Halden gets tricked. They're going to go stay in the room together, and his jaw ticks. So
Ew.
drinkies for Halden's jaw ticking.
I'm glad you're also tracking these because I felt like there were a ton in this section, and then I went to put in my notes and I was like, why don't I have more of these notes? Like, where did they all go?
I got you, girl.
And last note of the chapter here, Taryn tells Violet that he can't speak with Sigeo or any other dragons, and Violet realizes that she can't communicate with Xaden via the bond either. And I'm thinking here, hopefully that will help them, like, with the king at this point. Like, neither of them have magic, so they can't feel, like, the power going on, and they don't have to hide it. Or made a note here, unless the king has a way of sensing that. I don't know, just because leading up to their meeting with him and how Takaris warned them, I was just feeling like there was like something else was going on with Cortland. Like it's weird that there's no magic here. Is he like somehow hoarding all of the magic? I don't know. I was kind of on Cortland watch, I guess. I was a little suspicious of him.
It turns out to be completely fair.
Well, yeah, just not in a different way.
Yeah.
So
I was just surprised that the dragons couldn't even communicate with each other.
yeah.
I mean, it's your species. You would think you would be able to communicate somehow. Like, I don't know. I would understand magic taking away the human bond because that's like how they're connected. But apparently that's how all dragons are connected. And that was the real surprising thing for me in this moment.
So, well, and there was something about them saying that they were feeling weak or tired or something when they crossed over because they didn't realize how dependent they had become on magic, which I thought was really interesting and kind of scary. But now that you say that, I'm wondering if like other species on the continent can speak to each other because of the magic. Like, can dogs like chat and hang out?
Interesting. Nice. Can dogs bond with humans and then they can talk to each other?
I feel like with some dogs it would just be instant and like unwanted. It's just like a random dog comes up and is like, "Hey, you're my best friend." I'm like, "Oh God, not again!" Squirrel. These dogs keep coming up, man.
This is the novella I need. The side story about that kid and their dog.
This makes me think, though, too, if they do find the seventh breed, like, how are they going to communicate with the seventh breed?
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know how they plan to communicate with them anyway. I mean, I guess the dragons can.
Oh.
Because it's not like
but not
the
if they
humans would be able to.
find them in the aisles,
yeah,
though.
but not if they're on the aisles. Yeah.
Good point.
Unless they, they find out that some runes can help them do that in some way.
Yeah. I sort of have a working theory about this coming. We'll talk about it.
Maybe you should work on it.
Great. Thanks. Chapter 22.
Chapter 22. I said something similar last episode when we were talking about how no one had ever crossed the Emerald Sea before. And this one says, it's been centuries since any Navarian has stepped on foot on this isle. And I was like, so Navarians have been like all over this isle, right? That's very obvious.
Gotta be.
And then we already kind of learned that with obviously her dad being there, and then we learn a little bit from Fen Ryerson and maybe some others from Marisha. So
that was crazy to me that like that they even said that, because she would know. Like, that's the whole point they're there, is that her dad was here. So why are you saying Navarians haven't been here in centuries? But
She also said, like, no human has ever set foot in the Vale in book 1, and I'm, like, still waiting for that.
Yeah. So, like, there's a lot of them, right? Or somebody, or
gotta be.
she's going to be the
feel like,
first one or something is always what I thought it would be.
I still feel like it was Asher. I feel like he had to have gone there at some point. I just want to read all the books. I want all of his research books.
Yeah, but none of them are, like, the Feathertails at the Vale or anything like that. Like, that's not the titles
that we know of.
Yeah.
Stepping foot into the Vale by Asher Sorg.
There and back again.
Lived to tell the tale.
Really short book. Stepped foot in, kind of sucked, left.
I put my right foot in. I put my right foot out. I put my right foot in. And I shake it all about. Okay. Mira comes up to her while they have landed and says that she brought some runes with her that they're trying to see if they like work while they're out of the range of magic. And she gives her one that says, this one's supposed to shield you from the sunlight. She says, carry it while we're here for me, would you? And she's like, of course I will, like whatever. And then later Xaden says, you need to take a rest. We'll definitely need to get out of the sun for a bit. Your nose is turning pink. So yeah, so she's already sunburnt, and then she gets her like sun rune. And I have like some wild theories about this specific rune, which I know is like weird, but I would like us all to finish the book first. And I've written them all down, and I'm going to save it for our thoughts and theories episode. Because I have some weird rune sunscreen theories. Sunscreen runes.
I guess unless she just lied about what it was for, but I don't know why she would have done that.
I have theories. But also, if they're all my theories are wild and it is really just like a rune for the sunscreen or whatever, I would love one of those. Just like
maybe it was just like SPF 20, so it didn't really help that much.
Oh, yeah.
Just mild protection. Sure. My only note from this chapter section, really all the chapter sections, is that every time Xaden calls Violet love, I'm melting in my hoodie. And I don't. It's honestly really rude of Rebecca because Xaden has so many red flags in this book, but she keeps distracting me with that just one little term of endearment. I'm like, oh, Xaden gets me every time. Yep.
It's like he loves her so much. There's like red in his eyes and everything. It's like the hearts in his eyes are just showing.
My next note here, and we talked about this for a little while throughout this section, but how sad we are for Xaden, like when they get on the beach or when they land finally, and he's like just kind of taken in the sight, and she, described him looking like visibly more relaxed and not as stressed out.
Yeah.
And it's like he seems so happy here without the burden of magic and his general just overwhelming power, responsibility of the 107 marked one speaking for all of Tyrandor. Like, this is the first time that we've seen him at peace, and it's really sad knowing like he's gonna have to go back and like deal with all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like I wasn't expecting the quick transition from them back to Basgiath, especially like when he left, because I was expecting after the moment with him using the rune, I was like, oh man, it's gonna be, I feel like him going back to magic, it's gonna be even worse now that he's been out of it. But apparently it was really no different because they didn't really talk about it. But
Just showed up at class.
She acted like he was gone longer than she expected. So maybe it took a little bit longer for his eyes to go back this time or something. And obviously it didn't go fully back, but
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's definitely a sad
felt bad
moment.
for him.
He should just like smoke some churrum and then show up to class.
There you go.
Because then his eyes could just be red, and that's a better excuse than being venom.
They're like, oh, he's high.
Oh, got it.
They're like, Professor Rice, he's like, sorry, I was blazing it. Anyway, let's fight each other.
I was not expecting that from you. I thought you were going to be like, yeah, maybe he just shouldn't. To like say something
Just
super
end
sassy.
end
like,
it there.
yeah,
Just
just
shouldn't.
shouldn't. You know?
You just shouldn't do
Maybe
it.
just don't.
Or maybe just should, like, yeah, just don't. That's what I was expecting.
No,
so.
the hesitation was me
you know.
trying to remember what the drug was called because it was only like mentioned once.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, speaking of happy Xaden, Violet's POV at the beginning of chapter 23, so we're moving into 23, and they're like riding into town, and Violet's like thinking about just how happy he looks, and they're having this whole cute conversation. It says, then the man fucking winks at me, and I almost fall off my damned horse, and I wrote, relatable.
Is that what happened, Con?
This is how it starts. That's how it happened for
That's
me.
how it happened.
I wasn't on a horse, though. I don't like those.
In that same conversation, Xaden sort of asked Dane and Violet, did you two ride a lot when you were younger? And Dane and Violet's immediate responses are kind of just like trying to figure out what he's asking. And that scene was just so funny. Whenever Riddick too was like leaning in, like, "Oh yeah, this is getting interesting."
Yeah, after complaining about the horse, and he's like, "I'm so glad I got on this horse."
Yeah.
Yes.
It'd just be interesting to see what Xaden is without all of that pressure. Like, this is like a tiny, tiny glimpse at what he could have been, kind of a thing.
I also really loved this thought from Violet as she's just being kind of introspective here about their relationship and all the things they've been through. But it says, "Or is the miracle of our relationship the result of a precise combination of tragedies that broke us both so completely that when we collided, we became something entirely new?" And I liked that idea kind of was brought back with Narelle again later too, with her like alchemy comment. But I feel this way about Jon and just like the timing of when we met. And I feel like if we would have met any earlier, we would have been completely different people in a completely different place. And like everything just happened at the perfect time in the perfect way. Even though we'd both been through some like really awful things, it just like made us the right people for each other at the right time.
Yeah.
I love that.
Wow.
Are you Xaden Ryerson?
So nice.
Are you a Venom, John?
Do you blaze?
Do you always have the munchies?
That's true.
Ooh, very
That's
true.
true. I'm always snacking.
The Venom Munchies.
Oh, and then I just had to bring up like literally every interaction between Mira and Drake. I'm highlighting. Drake says to Mira, "Do writers get nicknames once they earn their wings? Because I'm pretty sure yours would be Killjoy." And my note was, "They're so gonna fall in love."
Absolutely.
And I literally went to say the same thing, and she had already made this note.
100%. Well, my only note from this chapter that you guys hadn't already written down was a request to Connor. Connor, could you make us Tomes and Tales bookstore t-shirts? Isn't that so cute?
That is so cute,
I
and I'm not
know.
licensed.
Dang it.
If anyone has an in with Rebecca Yarros, can you just ask her to license Khan's favorite things?
Yes.
And I'll totally make you some Tomes and Tales bookstore shirts.
Isn't that such a good idea? That's
So cute. I even tried to look for some online, and I couldn't find any that were licensed. There's like one that's not licensed on Etsy, and that's it. There's like nothing else.
I think it's such like a good reference that like
I know.
it could be so cute.
If we're on the subject of merch, way earlier this
Yes.
episode, someone mentioned ASIMs, and I was like, "Oh, someone should make like a T-shirt or a fake video game of ASIMs, but
Of
instead
The
of
Sims?
The Sims, and it's just all the Sims with little red eyes."
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. We have a couple people in
Asians
our
4.
Patreon that plays The Sims a lot. So you guys listening, we'd love to see it.
Oh, my next comment here is I love that we're talking about Riddick so much in this episode, but this is when they're about to go into the bookstore, and Vi tells Riddick, Drake, and Kat, "Please stay with the horses and be ready to run if this goes badly." And then Riddick says, "I'll be nearby." And Violet says, "I know." The reassuring way he said it makes my brow furrow, is what it reads. But I love that this is like an awesome little side quest here for Riddick after what Liam told him, and we've talked a little bit
Yeah.
about that before, so I just love that with him. He's like really taking ownership of that role now that
Yeah.
Liam is gone.
Oh, Liam.
I'm pretty sure that's the last thing, that Liam ever said to him was like, take care
Aw.
of
Yeah.
her like you're me.
Guard her like
And
you're me. Yeah.
At least that we saw that he said to her. So
Yeah. And then once they get into the bookstore and Narelle comes out, we were both talking about this too. We were hoping that it was going to be like Violet's dad coming out instead of Narelle, you know. She said she was expecting it to be maybe even Xaden's mom or something. And now I'm even kind of disappointed that it wasn't. almost that level of disappointment when I thought it was Andarna who like saved them
As
from
like a shifter.
the RSC thing or
Yeah.
whatever, or from Varish's interrogation. But anyway,
I'm so sorry. Yeah, on my first read, I was like really panicking about like who was gonna come down when they summoned Narelle. I'm like, it has to be someone we know. Like I thought it was gonna be Violet's dad too, but then for some reason I was just convinced in the moment that it was gonna be Xaden's mom. And then I was like, oh, okay, it's actually Narelle. All right.
I always just thought it was going to be this bookstore lady named Narelle. I never once thought anything wild. But I've always been for sure that Asher is actually dead. And like, so you're the one who's
have
not
not.
convinced
I
on that.
know.
And
You only
expect
get
it
so
to
many
be literally
resurrections.
everywhere.
I know. That's my like number one convincing factor for him actually being dead is like too many people have been brought back already.
Yeah.
And Rebecca has confirmed it, quote unquote, in interviews that he is dead, but I still don't trust anything she says. So I was, however, screaming at the end of this chapter. Literally, my note was just all caps. Ah! Because there was so much buildup in my head, of course, not necessarily in the books, to Asher's research. And I was kind of disappointed, like at first, when there was only one draft at the school. Like, oh, it's just at the college and it's one book. So then at the end of this chapter where Narelle says, you must be Asher Sorrengail's daughter, here to collect the books he wrote for you. And it says, my heart stops. I was like, mine did too. Books, multiple books. I was so excited.
Plural.
Plural books.
I love that. Well, and I was hoping that she would get into one and then it would be like, now go to this place and find more books or something.
Yeah.
And it would be just like this weird scavenger hunt. Yeah, that she gets sent on.
That could still happen. TBD. Speaking of books, we got to talk about a serious problem. Reading a book for the vibes with absolutely zero ambiance. Tragic, right? That's why mood reader candles exist, to make sure your reading sessions smell as good as they feel. Deep in a heart-stopping fantasy romance, try the Fantasy Era candle. This is my personal favorite. It smells like smoked vanilla and jasmine. Trekking through a dark and moody thriller, they've got a thriller candle that smells like oak moss, cedar, and who did it? Crying over your favorite comfort read for the 15th time? Might I suggest the Booktrovert candle to surround yourself in a cozy harvest spice scent. They really do have a candle for everything.
And listen, these aren't just any candles. They're hand-poured, book-inspired, and the scent range, chef's kiss. Our house always smells like a fictional world. So, if you want to level up your reading experience and make your TBR pile smell absolutely divine, check out Mood Reader Candles. Use code FRIENDS10 for 10% off because you and your books deserve a whole mood. Hit up moodreadercandles.com and treat yourself to a candle that matches your current read. Trust me, your cute little nose will thank you.
Boop. Boop your nose.
Gotcha.
All right, that takes us to chapter 24. My first note for this was when Narelle says, I'm 93, Leona, I'm not dead. Or what is it you Amaralis say? I have not yet met Malik. He's your god of death, is he not? My brow furrows at the unknown term Amaralis. So on my first read, this was just like my first impression of this line. Number one, she's almost as old as Taryn. I don't know why that was the first thing I thought of, but it was. She's like I feel like she's like the oldest person we've met so far, just because everyone at Basgiath dies super young or retires or whatever. But two, Amarali's like Amari, the queen of the gods. Does that mean people who worship the gods in general? Since she said like Malik is your god of death, is he not? I was wondering if it was like a regional or religious label that Violet has somehow never heard. That was the part that surprised me the most, that she'd never heard this term before. That was really just my little spiral there.
Religion is regional. We've already learned that.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Can I get that on a t-shirt? Religion is regional.
Oh, no.
What have I done?
Bumper sticker or something. That's such a good phrase.
I had a lot of little spirals like this in this section. Some of them were from my first read. Some of them were from this read. So just get ready for that. But
Well, and then she takes a look at Xaden and looks him up and down and goes through some descriptions of what Asher had shared with her. And she says, well, he described you almost perfectly, Daenatos. Whoops.
I'm so hard at that.
Me too. It was an
That was
amazing
pretty
part.
solid.
And then Xaden's jaw ticks. Cheers.
Well, in response to that, Xaden gets super territorial alpha male. And Narelle says, how illogically, toxically romantic of you. And I was like, oh, what a perfect way to describe their entire relationship. Illogically
Really is.
toxic. So cute.
Kyle.
Yeah. I was going to say, like you said, oh, what a perfect way. And I was going to say, take the romantic part off, but you already did. Illogically toxic. Yeah.
Oh, I said, how cute.
Kyle's like, vindication.
Yeah, you and Narelle, you can go be best friends.
You probably would be.
She is like such a random side character that I ended up really loving just from this
Same.
super random interaction.
Especially how she even treated like her grandkids after, and like one's literally stabbed on the floor, and she's like, "Well, you asked for it. Like, get up and get out of here." Like, it's like,
I mean, as like parents, though, surely we all understand. Like,
Yeah.
when our kid does something crazy and like front flips over a couch into a table, I'm like, I don't know what you thought would happen. Like, You're looking at me like that you thought that was some crazy thing.
I still don't know if, obviously, even if my child provoked it, but someone stabbed my child, I would then continue to have a conversation with them. But, that's cool if Narelle
A little
wants
different
to do
when
that.
your kid is 5 versus
Right.
you're 93 and this is your grade.
Yeah. And at 93, how often do you think this guy's been stabbed already? You're like, oh my gosh.
Here
we go again.
So while Narelle is like quizzing Violet and she's trying to figure stuff out, she's trying to jog Dane's memory, and she says, I think it was the year you were obsessed with the tactics of defeating Emerald Sea piracy or something. And then they continue their conversation. And I was like, are we getting a pirate dragon book, Rebecca?
Pirate dragons?
I'm obsessed. I've latched on. I've latched onto this idea that there's gonna be some epic sea adventure at some point with the Emerald Sea, and now there's pirates in the Emerald Sea. And
I'm with eye patches and
Like
peg
Varish's
legs.
dragon missing an eye.
That's where it's going to be Sawyer's book.
Oh, yeah.
Peg leg. Sawyer's
Oh my
side
gosh.
book.
Iron Leg Sawyer.
Oh my gosh.
I'm here for it.
Anyway,
Maybe she could like tandem it with another book where they go to like a desert or something, and then it's like one with a boat on a cover, and another one where it's like a desert.
See,
that is such a unique and interesting idea, Lauren.
I was honestly reminded of I think one of Brandon Sanderson's most popular books is called Triss and the Emerald Sea. So I was like, oh, I wonder if
Oh.
surely there's not any
just-
correlation there. Emerald Sea is a very common fantasy trope. But
Yeah.
I just keep thinking of the Emerald City.
one short
and thinking
day.
One
it's, like,
short
Oz.
day.
Yeah,
That's all. I'm
like
thinking.
that's all I ever think of.
If they do go there and they only go there for one day, I
A
will be
short
so
day.
satisfied.
They're just like there for just a little tiny bit.
We'll rewrite the whole song.
Just a day trip.
Record it.
Well, now we have to. It's recorded and it's out there
Yeah.
on the internet.
It's out there.
No going back now. Okay, so one of the answers that Violet gives in order to get one of the books is that she thinks that they promised dragons and couldn't deliver them, and that was part of the reason for the Crovelish War,
Crovelish Uprising.
the Crovelish Uprising.
The second one
And-
specifically.
Oh, compared to the first. Got it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But I just want to know, what was their plan here? How did they, this just feels like a very obviously impossible task to be able to just, take dragons who they have absolutely zero control over and say, we're just gifting them to you, or I don't know, are they stealing eggs? Obviously, they were looking at feather tails, so were they
Right.
but were they waiting until they were hatched and trying to, take them while they're really young, or I don't know, but the whole thing just feels like an obvious fail from the start. And I couldn't tell if everyone was shocked whenever she said it based off of how stupid, they actually thought they could get away with that, or more just how dare they kind of a thing. And maybe it was a little bit of both, but either way, it was well, that feels like an obvious fail. So good try, everyone.
Bunch of idiots.
Yeah, basically. I was unimpressed. Moving on.
I have two little small notes from the rest of this chapter, but the first one is after Violet answers all of Narelle's questions, and specifically the one about Halden. Narelle says, "You know your value. Your father would be proud. Go get her the books." And this was just this is the number one thing I hope for with my daughters. So for some reason, this line just made me a little emotional. I thought this was so sweet. Some sweet closure from Narelle.
Every time you write a little emotional, you write little emo, and then I'm thinking something completely different. But
Because tonight will be the night that...
this song
Maybe a
just
little
makes me a
emo.
little more emo.
Oh, I took it as a little emo, back in middle school when I was a little emo.
Well, that's also true. Yeah, that's fair.
I was thinking it was making her a little bit more, and it's all just gonna kind of like Zayden turning venom.
My eyeliner just gets thicker and thicker every week. I grow out my bangs.
The dark rim around her eyes. She's turning emo.
Amazing. Well, while Violet is getting her books, I think Mira is having a whole moment. Mira is going through something and just having feelings about why aren't these books for me? Or obviously Violet has this connection with Dad, or where does she fit into all of this kind of a thing? And Narelle says to her, while he, being Asher, was busy raising Violet for this particular mission, your mother was raising you. I wonder what legacy you've inherited. And it just makes me so excited for Mira more than anything. I just feel I'm Team Lilith. I wasn't at the beginning. I think if this sentence came out at the beginning, I'd be like, oh no, Mira's going to be a bad guy. Like, but now I'm like full team Sorrengail all around. And I'm just like, I don't know. I just feel like this is like the start of something new for Mira.
Be here with you.
Thanks. But yes.
I can do it.
What?
We're gonna start something new. We're gonna start something new. That's what I thought of. It's Cocoa Melon,
Nice.
baby.
Let's go.
Anyways, excited for
Anyway.
Mira. And whatever the heck that means for whatever legacy she's inherited.
Yes.
Maybe Mira will end up being like the new general of Basgiath or something cool one day, or doing something cool and important.
Yeah, I could see her in that position, actually.
100%.
Now that you say that. I could totally see that. Yeah.
I could see her
Love
in that
that for her.
position as well.
Oh, gay Kyle.
And some others.
John's face. Kyle Andrew.
Couldn't resist.
Well, not unrelated, my last little random note from this chapter was Violet at the very end of this chapter saying, clean, fed, and ready to curl up with the man I love. And I wrote, that's the dream. That's the dream. That's all. Chapter 25.
Chapter 25. How have we made it this long in an episode without a pre-chap?
Yes.
Amazing.
Amazing. That was great. That was so much better than anything I could have ever done.
Connor and I were just like waiting. Amazing, Kyle. Good job.
10 out of 10.
Amazing.
He's been waiting all this time just to have his moment. And there it was.
To make his debut.
Yep, that's it.
No notes for that pre-chat blurb.
Moving on. No, I'm just kidding. My actual note was the pre-chat blurb was a confiscated correspondence of Fen Ryerson to an unknown intended recipient. And at first I was like, oh, it's probably just to like Xaden or something. But then later we kind of learned that he was also on the Isles and had like talked to King Cortland and stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, who knows who this was going to or what he was up to and all the things. And I just feel like there's so much about Fen Ryerson that I want to know more of. And we know nothing. And I hate that. So that's the new dad that I want to know. Like, maybe he'll just show up. Maybe he's still alive. Maybe we move on from Asher, we move on to Fen, and hope that he's out there somewhere and we get a cool book or something.
I am probably the most confident that Fen is actually dead because they like all watched him die.
Well, yeah.
That's fair.
But I think the only other like quote we've gotten from him is, I'm pretty sure in book 1 it was an epigraph that just said it was like his redacted last words of Fen Ryerson, and it was like, you're all cowards.
Yep.
So
Well, and as we get into the saucy spice parts,
Excuse me?
I really appreciated how she wrote this, and
he read it to me actually while he was reading the scene.
It was just, I just felt like it was
There's a moment.
It was just like very well written here within the moment, but it says, every touch of his lips sends a jolt of yes straight down my spine, and they quickly gather into an aching knot of please right between my thighs. Like, whoa, mama, okay. Woo. Holy smokes. All right. It was just a well-written sentence there.
I agree.
It was.
Wanted it known.
Yeah. Thank you.
Please and thank you. Mind your manners.
Actually, it's yes and please if we're tracking.
Yeah, I just mean, anyway, whatever. This next note, I wasn't going to include, but it just made me laugh so much looking back at my first read because I didn't have any context for it when I first saw it. Because the highlight was, does that sound like something you'd be interested in? And I wrote yes. And that was it. And then I clicked on it, and it was the part where Xaden says, there's no magic here. I can fuck you as many times as we want, as many times as you can take, and I can't lose control. And Violet's like, oh. And he says, does that sound like something you'd be interested in? And I wrote yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what that line was about because that was from my first read like months ago, and then that just made me laugh, so I had to include
Did your
it.
answer change to the question on your second read?
No, it did not.
All right.
All right. My next note this is Xaden speaking. He says, I want you from the second I wake until the moment I fall asleep. I dream about you. And then he says, they say I love you to each other. But when he said this, I was like, a nice sentiment. That's nice. But I'm not sure that's a good thing for like Vin and Xaden. It made me a little worried that like, because she's had some really realistic dreams. It just made me a little concerned that and I've mentioned the whole obsessiveness thing before. It's like getting borderline weird. So with the dream things coming in, I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to be on Dream Watch now a little bit. Like if he starts having, or maybe if it starts describing her having some dreams about like Xaden doing something to her, like as a venom or something.
Oh, yeah. Connor, get your head out of the first part of this book, this chapter.
Calm down.
She's still saying yes to Xaden up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's true though, with all the like the dream stuff, even from like the previous book and everything. It'd be interesting to find
with
out
the sage.
Because like I think you and I at the end of it were like, oh, maybe it's something to do with that is what we'll see. So maybe she's forcing herself into his dreams because that's the only place they can be together.
That's so cute.
That's
and
so
toxically
sad.
romantic.
Yeah, illogically toxic of them.
Because like, okay, so not saying that the sage was this, but if he's an intrinsic, would he be able to make people have specific dreams or something?
Or like maybe pull from their thoughts if he's laying. Well, he doesn't always lay right next to her either, though.
Yeah,
but if her like,
anyway,
yeah, because she was dreaming stuff that happened later to
Right.
Xaden, so maybe she does have some sort of.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Think more about that.
I feel like we know nothing about Intrinsic other than what we know from Xaden, because every other one has been
that's
killed
true.
or in
Yeah.
hiding.
Yeah.
So it's like we can
But I don't-
speculate, but we have no actual facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen a signet yet, though, where like you can implant some kind of thought into someone's mind or something.
But if you could take
Like,
them
you
away,
could-
like Imogen,
Right. You would think that
Surely
there would
there
be a
were
way to do that.
there is a.
Well,
'cause
maybe
they talk
it
about
could even
nature
be-
balancing itself, so that would be
Right.
the balance.
I was gonna say
Interesting.
maybe it would be end up being like a venom or something, if it's like the balance or whatever.
Oh, like a venom could do that? Oh, that's
Yeah.
freaky. I don't
Maybe.
like that.
Like if Imogen can take it away and they like give it the memories or the whatever it is.
But then
Yeah,
there's
we'd have
still
kinda
something.
like a- go ahead,
Sorry,
Kyle.
go ahead. Oh, I was
No,
just
you
saying, there's still something freakishly wrong with Violet, with her hair and everything that we don't know about that could be
Right.
related to the venom as well.
Yeah, silver watch.
Freakishly. Her hair is cute. Back off.
Ombre, Kyle.
That's like the typical like romantic thing, like so I've been cursed with this thing that makes my hair glitter. Like it's always everybody hates me for it.
It's always so shiny.
And I can't do a thing about it even if I roll in the mud. It's perfectly clean and coiffed.
I guess that would sort of be like Quinn can astral project, where she can make someone see something that's not real,
Oh, that's
like
type
outside
of
of their
illusion,
head. And then Xaden's jaw flexes. Cheers again.
Cheersies.
I'm running out of water already.
I know.
Heavy drinker.
Heavy jaw flexor.
Yeah, they're taking
Xaden
flexing,
has- yeah.
clenching.
His jaw has to be the most defined of any
Chiseled.
jaw.
When did
Every
it
time
not
I hear
flex?
that like description though, that's all I think. It's like, oh, they must flex their jaw all the time. It's gonna be a jaw
Lot of
flexor.
tension.
Yep.
Yep.
As soon as it's like with the most
Classic.
chiseled jaw, it's like, oh, I know what I'm getting into.
Typical jaw flexor. So in this spicy scene, right before some spicy things happen, Xaden says, "Are you
Go
sure
on.
you?" Xaden says, "Are you sure you know what I am?" And Violet says, "I know who you are." And I feel like we all had different reactions to this line. For me, it kind of reminded me of Taryn saying both of those things to Violet in book 1, where he says, "I know exactly who and what you are, Violet Sorengale." And we never really got clarification on if that meant anything specific, but I thought it was interesting having like the same language brought up here.
All I could think about was that she was having sex with a venom. And if it was any other person that came, like, presented as a
Whoa.
venom. Guys!
Go on.
If it was any other person that, like, showed up and was like, I'm a venom, and then she had sex with them, I think we would all be like, that's super cringe and
Yeah,
horrible and
'cause she's
awful. But,
cheating.
like, but for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with them right now.
No, I'm with you
Because of
there. I
concept.
thought it was kind of a bit weird.
First of all, to that, sensual lips. Second of all,
Exhibit A.
that's all I could think of from Throne of Glass with the Ilkin or whatever.
Yeah.
And then second of all, I got like a they're about to conceive foreshadowing vibe here, like with his comment. So I'm also on baby watch, pregnancy watch. I'm on a lot of watches here after this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
what would that mean for their offspring if they did?
Just facts. You just
Well, when a venom and a
thanks.
woman love each other very much.
Oh, it's genius. No, I have also seen some theories from this moment that because they're on an island without magic and their magic pregnancy suppressant is potentially
oh my
magic.
god, that's
no.
so true.
That-
It's totally gonna happen.
That
Oh.
It's a
then
tonic.
Is
they
it
take,
magic?
right?
maybe I don't
Yeah,
know.
I thought it was more like a tonic. They take the fertility suppressant. It's not
yeah.
like a
I don't know. That's just the theory
Did
I
they
have
remember
seen.
to pack it?
Yeah.
That, yeah,
great question.
that because it's whatever that potentially this moment specifically is that.
Surely.
So you're not the only one who thought that on the internet,
Okay,
John.
good.
I would hope
And
it's
also
not.
earlier they were talking about how Xaden doesn't have an heir and whatever. That was
Oh my
my
God.
moment where it was
Yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
it was that moment for me that I was like, oh gosh, if they're talking about an heir or something, like
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would hope that the like tonic is not in and of itself magic. Like it would be the same sort of thing that they made to get rid of their ability to
Yeah,
talk
I
to
mean,
dragons, like
yeah.
a
Right.
tonic like that.
Herbs or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they pack it every trip. Just like any college, I'm
Always.
sure there's signs everywhere. Don't forget your tonic. The one thing we're safe about here at Basgaiath is
They have small vials like all over
Yeah.
like reception desks.
yeah.
In the
It's like,
bathrooms.
there's
Yeah,
a
in
little
the bathrooms.
bowl where you pick one
People
up.
are like taking I think I'll take two, just in case.
Oh my god.
Hey, stop. It's so good. Well, obviously, they decide to have some fun adult time activities, and they end up breaking the table, which I thought was hilarious because it like
Ew.
leads up to it too, where it was like, and it was creaking. And then it shifted a little, or like whatever it was, and then they completely fall. And whenever the people all come to the door, Xaden answers the door, and Violet's kind of hiding, and she says, "I lean to the left, just enough to see Xaden glance over his shoulder. Yes, the table is broken. Now, what do you need?" And then Riddick says, "You two totally broke it, didn't you?" Like that armoire no one was supposed to notice getting hauled out of a room during
Yes.
first year. I loved it so much because we only see their perspective of like them
Yes.
cleaning up that moment, and it like everyone moves on. But instead, of course, Riddick saw it, and all of them probably did. It was probably the gossip of the whole college for a hot minute there.
And then Mira's like, the what?
Yeah.
Excuse me? Okay. Chapter 26 is another one of my little mini spirals. So this is about the pre-chap blurb.
Pre-chap.
Skibbity bibbity bop blurb.
Perfect.
Oh, why has this become a thing? This is probably the stupidest thing we've ever done, but it's so fun.
I don't even think we've
so
released an
fun.
episode yet that we've done it, that people have reacted to it. Right now, totally just us.
I know, no one says a word about it.
Oh my god, bro.
I love it.
Anyway, I wanted to talk about this one because I kind of freaked out about it like the first time I read it. And then reading back through it, I'm like, I still need so much more information about this. I feel like this was one where Rebecca just threw it in here and she was like, evil laugh.
Yep.
But the actual epigraph is: in the first 24 hours of removal from source magic, the subject, an ASEM, presented as even-tempered, but withdrawal quickly revealed the subject's true nature, requiring the subject's immediate transfer to stage 2 of the study. Her results can be found with group 33B under the category Death by Fire, and subsequently group 46C under the category Death by Poison. So, first of all, does this mean, I'm assuming, staying on Devarelli wouldn't even be an option for Xaden because he would go into some kind of withdrawal, at least if he were officially an ASIM by that point? Because they had kind of, in this section, Violet's kind of like, for the first time, I consider Takaris' offer of like just staying in Devarelli forever with Xaden. Like that might actually be a thing for us because he's so happy here. But it makes it sound like absolutely not. But then also, I don't know a lot personally about how research like this would be recorded. But like, why are there so many groups, and why is she part of both? Like, why is death by fire so far apart from death by poison? And does that mean they tried to kill her by fire and then had to resort to poison when the fire didn't work? But then if that's true, what kind of poison was successful in killing a venin? And then did they have to kill her because her withdrawal symptoms were so severe that she could not possibly be kept alive anymore? Like, they just transferred to stage 2, was just killing her? Like, I have a lot of questions about this.
All valid.
Not that anybody really has answers, but
we already know that fire, at least dragon fire, doesn't work, which was like
Right.
the whole surprise about Andarna. So maybe this is like in the early stages of them figuring it out. And like, we'll just try fire, and then there's like however many attempts, because they don't have dragons, for them to realize that didn't work either.
from
Just switch to
33B to
poison?
46C, I don't know if those were
know.
consecutive attempts necessarily, but like,
It sounds like airplane seats more than anything. So,
she just went back a few rows. It's
Yeah.
fine.
she's now in the aisle.
I feel
Super
like-
annoying.
The way I feel it, like it reads to me is like, oh, they tried fire, obviously didn't work. They tried poison with another group. Maybe it worked, but probably not. Otherwise, they'd be using poison all the time on venin. And then
Yeah.
they just didn't get to another test because the venin killed them all. And that's how I'm reading it, is like they failed too many times and the venin eventually took over. Research incomplete.
Interesting.
That feels very like, what's that one movie with Will Smith and his dog?
Hitch.
I Am Legend. Kyle! Stop. No, that feels very I Am Legend, where it's like him doing all the like
Yeah.
studies by himself,
Yeah.
but the whole world is now these like zombies that are also weirdly sentient and still talk to each other and have their own society. That's what this feels like.
So that was just, I feel like the first time that I read it, I was just so confused that I was like, maybe this will make more sense later. But I just like going back through it, I'm like, okay, let me try to really dissect this. And I still, I don't know, I just feel more confused and panicked about it. So just figured I'd bring that up. And then Taryn, this is just a side note. Taryn keeps bringing up his very specific lineage that he's very proud of. And I'm very annoyed that I don't know more about it yet. I feel like it's so important.
Well, especially when we know that like some of these other dragons are potentially lying about their lineage to
Right.
whoever's actually, and even Violet's like, even though I already know it, but like, I don't know it, Violet.
I wanna know it.
I'd love to know. Fill a girl in.
What
Did
does
he
it
say
mean?
at the beginning? Or he didn't say the complete one at the beginning, I guess?
Yeah, he just said like from this line, descendant of
Gotcha.
these two specific dragons or
But like
families
this,
or
it
whatever.
gets more specific,
Yeah,
I feel like.
yeah.
And then this was just something stupid that made me laugh whenever they're landing in the space, and it was like the space is wide enough to support the width of 2 dragons. It made me laugh every time I see the words 2 dragons.
Oh, yeah. This note, it's been a while since I've been nitpicky about world building, so here we go. It's they have these, what were the little flies called?
Falerinia moths.
Yeah, those guys. They feed on honey, and that's when they light up. And this whole place was like lit up by little glass orbs filled with the buggers. And I was like, this place must be the honey capital of the world if they have enough to feed honeycomb to get their special little blue lights. Like, not to mention they only light up when they're feeding. So like, how long does the light realistically last? It's a bug. It doesn't need to eat much. Do you have to starve them during the day? Do they eat for hours at a time? Have they tried torches? Like, I'm no lampiridologist, but I think that doesn't work. I don't know. It just bothered me. I was like, why?
Yeah.
There's just because of the torch thing. Like,
Oh, yeah.
It's supposed to be cool and different, Kyle. Let it be.
I mean, well, and they wouldn't have mage lights because there's no magic.
Yeah.
So I
True.
guess
But
something
again,
cool had to.
torches.
Yeah.
and they're outside. Like, they're just.
I mean, yeah,
you know.
but I'm sure the glass orbs are like open, obviously, to let air in. But it just doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess depending on how bright they glow, I'm picturing a very dim, like firefly jar
Oh.
glow. If
Yeah.
they're like
Yeah.
huge lightning bugs, then first of all, freaky.
LED bugs.
Yeah, the LED bugs.
But like, whose job is it to go around
Yeah.
to all the little glass orbs and put in the honeycomb for the day?
Right.
Yeah, here you go. But no, that is, yeah, that's what I pictured. A guy going around with honeycomb or like
Yep.
dropping new flies at new moths.
He's
Maybe
like this
they can- maybe
weird
it's like
guy
a-
going around, and someone's like, "Oh yeah, there's the bug guy."
He's just doing it. They're like, yeah, we don't like these lights. There's a weird guy who keeps putting bugs in our lamps.
Maybe they're just like bird feeders though, or something, where the glass orbs are like, open so they can come and go,
Yeah,
but
maybe.
they
That's
choose
true.
to. I don't know.
Sure.
Either way, I stand by the torch comment. Just like light a torch. It's that easy.
Very fair, yes.
Sure.
My next comment here is when we find out that Xaden carries some kind of oversized pack. It says that he's hauled from Navarre, and which he's told Violet was for something, just in case, quote unquote. And I was like, oh, what's in there? I want to know. Like, this big pack stuff. Like, what's in there? I got to know.
And that pack.
What you got in that bag?
It was just
Well,
a
they
dad
both
joke.
brought
They
secret
both, yeah.
packs.
They both did.
My next note was when she describes these people coming in with different names, and this is Blue Sash Blusters. We do not believe in weaponry. And my first thought was like, you're holding a serrated spear. What do you mean you don't believe in weaponry? And then literally the next line was the exact same reaction from Violet. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I'm not the only one who thinks that's a stupid thing to say.
Well, and along that line, she just calls one of them nose flare. And she's like, I shoot a warning over at the nose flarer on my right. I really think the way that Violet describes strangers is probably one of my favorite
Yes.
things about the entire series, not just this book. It's like, it
So
cracks
good.
me up every time. I'm here for it. I relate.
Soon after, Xaden calls Violet his consort in order to get her into the meeting with him. And he's rejected because she's like, what the heck, bro? Basically. And she says, now's not the time for jokes. And then he smolders at her and asks when it would be time for that question. And she humming for a heartbeat or two. And I was like, these guys are getting married, aren't they? Because, like, there's no way
That's what I thought.
that wouldn't be a thing. Like, and I was like, will it be a complete with a ceremony gone wrong, interrupted by, like, sudden war, kidnapping, and they can't even have a honeymoon? Who's Riddick bringing to the ceremony?
worst.
Who's he leaving with?
Ooh, that's the real question.
real
Important.
question.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's
Who's he
right.
leaving with?
I had
Yeah.
a note. I think it was somewhere around. It might have been the same part where I was like, "They're totally getting engaged.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna propose by the end of the book."
As soon
for
as he,
sure.
like, joked about asking the question for real, I was like, all right, yeah, I get it.
yeah,
I'm just worried that she's pregnant. That's been mine. I don't know.
Yeah.
More than getting married, but well, John, grab that drink again because Xaden's jaw clenches.
Whoa.
Next up, they're finally into the castle or whatever to meet Cortland, and they're walking up, and me and Con talked about this for a little while, but she says he's younger than I thought. She says about King Cortland, and she notes that he looks younger by about 4 decades or so. She says Cortland only looks to be a few years older than Xaden and me, and I was like how is he just a lot younger than they expected? I didn't have this thought. Connor had this thought that maybe he killed whoever was in power before him. I thought maybe he just looked younger because there was some magic or runes in play, or maybe they just don't have great information or some misinformation about who's been ruling, or, Takaris just didn't describe him well or something. Like, why is it such a surprise that he looks that much younger than they were expecting? I don't know. Just very suspicious.
Thought that, either like Asher described him differently in the book because that's where she got all her info from. Isn't
Okay,
it from
yeah.
like all the books and stuff? So maybe she thought that. I also thought maybe that this guy was like faking it. Like the real king didn't come to dinner and this is like a stand-in person or something.
Nice.
interesting.
That's a very
Well, he did try to
common thing.
kidnap Halden, so maybe he actually kidnapped the real king.
But that's true.
Has him locked up somewhere.
Collected him.
Collecting royalty.
I mean, if this dude wants to collect Halden, I mean, obviously messed up.
Yeah.
Like obviously not okay. So
I was telling Connor too. I pictured him like making them into little miniature versions of themselves and keeping them.
oh,
Isn't that from a movie or a
Yeah.
book or something? I don't remember what that's
Indian
from,
in the cupboard.
but- yeah, something like that. Something
It
like
was
that,
about
something
small
similar.
people.
I read the spicy retelling of the Nutcracker, and the guy did that
Whoa.
with like the little
Easy,
had the little.
easy. Whoa.
No, I just mean
The little what? You probably shouldn't go there.
okay. I mentioned this earlier. This is about Fen. Whenever we find out that he had been having conversations or communication with King Cortland says to Xaden, I need to know that you can uphold your end of the bargain, even when it's unpleasant to do so, just as your father did. And then Xaden just kind of like tenses up, and like that's where they leave it. Nobody has a conversation they have that we've seen so far. Like there's no follow-up to that. Nobody asks, well, what do you mean that you had talked to Xaden's father or whatever? And so we just get that one line, and even Violet says like, I guess my father wasn't the only one keeping secrets. So I'm kind of hoping that maybe they do search Orisha or somehow find some lost journals of Fen Ryerson or something, how they're reading like Lilith's journals. Maybe they'll find that from Fen, or I don't know, something where we get more information from him. But I would love some more insight on him as a person and all the things he did.
Yep.
That
Same.
also sort of answers a little bit. You're like, oh, maybe he killed the previous person in power. Like, this might have been the same guy that was there when Fen was there, at the very least, which was just like a few years ago, I guess. But
And didn't it say that like Asher wrote this book when he was like 23? Like when he would have been right out of the
First one.
Scribes Quadrant. So maybe it was like an older person then, and now something happened and it would be a younger person now or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe.
maybe he's got Benjamin Button disease.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That's a good theory, Kyle.
Entirely possible.
Wow.
See, we're laughing, but like Kyle's random theories are the ones that come true. So I don't
It's
know.
gonna be like at the very end of the series, just like an afterword. Oh, by the way,
and by the
King
way,
Cortland had Benjamin Button disease.
He's now a baby.
That's so
You
funny.
never
epilogue.
see him again until that moment in the epilogue.
Wow.
Okay, my next quote says, from Violet's POV, it says, I reach into the side pocket of my pack for the conduit out of sheer habit as the panthers approach the dais, splitting to surround us. The familiar weight of the orb is comforting in my hand, and I swear I can feel the hum, a swift rise in heat that I know is only in my head, but it's soothing all the same. And I, on my first read, like there's no way in heck this isn't the facts. On my second read, it just says, oh no, there is still magic here in this land, even if it's faint. Or
Tell
she
'em.
like has imbued it still into the alloy that's in the inside of her conduit that she uses or something. Because like obviously later we find out that Xaden ends up using it. But like this isn't the only time that there's like these mini connections to magic, and I feel like we're gonna end up talking about a lot of it, but it just makes me wonder for a lot other things with like the studies on the venom stuff we were just talking about in the pre-chap, or like I don't know, there's just like a lot if there is still magic, even if it's a little bit of magic, and how
Right.
that changes things on this island or our view of the island and stuff. So
I got some notes on that, girl.
can't wait.
My next note, though, is just Anna's head being on the plate
Wild.
when they uncover the platter. Speechless. This whole scene is crazy.
Yeah.
I do agree that it was like pretty rough, but I have like Vine brain rot still, so all I could think of was Prince Halden in the Vine where the guy's like, so no head, and then he breaks his cape.
Kyle, that's awful.
But
She's
the parts-
dead.
Not well, yeah, she's also, fictional, but it was a crazy scene, especially with like when they learned what they were like actually being served potentially.
Yeah.
Where they weren't being served the human, right? That was the other book we read.
Well, they put it in front
They
of
put it in
Halden.
front of-
Yeah.
yeah, they put it in front of them, but I think the Panthers were the ones who actually tore into it.
Yeah. I saw a post recently from Feminine and Fabled on Instagram. She has like a new licensed book merch shop. And she was like, this message is for Rebecca Yarros. Why can't we just have like one good redheaded character in this series? Because I want to cosplay. And the only people I have are like, I think Aura Bindhaven had red hair, I think. And then Anna Windshire, who's now dead. And like, it was just like a couple random people who were the worst. And the person that Halden cheated on Violet with
Yep.
also had red hair.
Type.
Like,
There's a history there,
Yeah.
Rebecca.
who
hurt you?
you?
Oh, that was good.
Anyway. All right.
Yeah. Well, and then obviously that is a wild moment when Anna's head is just on the plate, and then the like Panthers come up, and it's like all crazy for King Cortland to just get bored, and he's like, "Yeah, I've heard enough, and this grows tedious. So Takaris may live, but kill the rest." And I was like, "Excuse me, you can't just decide those things and just walk away." Oh, so if it wasn't already wild, it was about to get in chapter 27, just with that being the end of chapter 26. So
Chapter 27, my first note is in Violet's POV. We were just talking about this. Anger storms through my veins, heating my skin from the scalp down in a flood of smelted rage. And there's a lot of these little descriptions, but I was so sus of like all of them while they're on Deverelli, because she doesn't actively display any power or like wield, but it sounds a lot like the language that she uses while she's channeling. Yep. And she's the only one with her bond still intact. Yep. So I have a lot of notes about that. So I'm glad that we're on the same page, so to speak. Then I have God's Watch, because this is when Xaden does channel from like the conduit or whatever. Violet's looking at him, and it says it's one step past fury, as though Dune herself has stepped into his eyes and now peers back at me. He's Xaden, but he's ... not. I just thought that it was interesting that this God's comparison is happening for Ragey Venom Xaden here. And like they do use some God's comparisons, like that Rhiannon looks kind of like Amari or whatever, but I feel like this was very specific, and it was intriguing to me that this happened like while he's Venom. And then along with Ragey Venom Xaden, he says they're all fucking dead. His vow lifts the hair at the back of my neck. So this was another one of my Venom tingle watches. It's like every time he has a moment like this, the hair on the back of her neck is prickling or something.
First of all, she's got a lot of hair on the back of her neck. She's very aware of it.
Back of your neck is ridiculous.
For me, it wasn't even the fact that like he did obviously channel, and he did have this whole like moment with like Dune in his eyes or whatever. It was the moment before that where he's just like, she's trying to be like, I'm fine, it doesn't hurt, whatever, and he's like weirdly like inspecting her face, that where she got hurt, and like like literally changing into not himself because of her getting hurt or something, because of for her, and it's not it, and I'm just stressed out for him. Like I want them to be. I love him so freaking much. Like my love for Xaden Ryerson from the first book is unmatched, and being here and not being able to feel like I'm 100% team Xaden is killing me on the inside. Kills me. I just love him, and I'm just so stressed for him.
You loved him, and he's changed.
Stop.
And it's okay to stop.
Took all of a heartbeat to fall out of love.
Stop.
Well, my next note was, oh, snap, when all the necks snapped.
Oh my God, Kyle.
And like a little note, just a little bit beneath there, and when he's like, she tells him to cover his eyes and sit down, and she sort of is like, oh, we still mourn over it. I was like, it's so crazy to think that the locals were convinced that someone from a death college would be so affected by killing that they have to like pout immediately after. Because if I knew that they were from there, I'd be like, no, you're used to this. Like, this is day one for you. So it's just weird that they were, oh, yeah, he's sad.
It's okay because he's sad.
It's because he was hiding his eyes, Kyle.
Oh, I know why they did it. I'm just, the locals don't. So all they think are like, oh, yeah, he's crying into his hands.
Well,
that
all the
makes
locals
total
are dead.
sense. Not all of them.
I think it's just two that aren't, right? The king and then the new dude that walks in.
Oh. Are they foreign to this island? Or are they local, plural?
I don't know.
Locals?
But I guess Cortland was probably also distracted by the panther in Darna's mouth.
Anyways, we'll talk about that later. Just kidding. Whenever Violet is like trying to basically talk Xaden off of this ledge he did go off the ledge. So she's trying to like help him recover, I guess. And it says something falls from his hand, hitting his abandoned sword with a metallic clink. I grab the small object on impulse and close my fingers around the pebble-sized piece of alloy from my conduit. Agony cracks my soul clean open, as if I can give Xaden some of what he's just lost as I register the alloy's chill. Its complete and total lack of energy before shoving it in my front pocket. So even she notices that it now has no energy, as where before she was saying it was in her head, and has fully accepted that, like, obviously that was the moment or the thing that I guess gave him some sort of power. It just makes me wonder if magic really is gone here, could they bring in magic stuff like it? Like if they are shipping out like the alloy hilted daggers, or even just like alloy itself, or like something imbued with magic and shipping it there, that they would end up having some that they could use or wield or put up wards, or
well, it makes
who
sense.
knows what,
Like, the stuff is made from the ward stone, whatever they take from it or whatever, like they said. So if I feel like, yeah, if you got enough of it, or a big monumental chunk of it, perhaps, like they create their wards with, it would make sense to have magic there.
Yeah, they would just have to like bring it in. Which makes me wonder, since there are these ginormous stones where they are, did somebody bring it to Navarre or to Eurasia?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
were they made there in those places and like carved into what it is, or was it like brought in potentially from somewhere else?
They're actually another 8th type of dragon, and they just have never hatched yet.
The
the
giant
egg.
ward stone is an egg.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a big dragon. Again, no theories are off the table, and especially Kyle's, wild as they may be, could in fact be truth. So
My next note here is when Violet readdresses Cortland after Xaden wields, she says, "Did you know that I'm a lightning wielder?" And Cortland says, "Takaris mentioned something along those lines." And I was like, freaking stupid Takaris. And it's so dumb that this is even a thing after Takaris literally warned them not to tell Cortland what a precious jewel she
Right.
was, and he just like told them anyway. So it was like he's just playing the game, making them think that he's on like their side or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and this could very much be just me super reading into it, but him saying something along those lines also makes me think that maybe Takaris knows that Violet can wield pure power, like Felix said. Like, maybe he heard about or knew whoever was the last lightning wielder and knew of a fuller extent to her power, and that's why he's so invested in, like, wanting to see her wield or wanting to keep her as his personal guard or whatever. So, like, the fact that she said, "Did you know that I'm a lightning wielder?" which is a yes or no question. And he says something along those lines. Like, that just made me think that maybe he didn't specifically say that, or he elaborated or something. I don't know. Which, again, is so dumb after saying, "Don't tell him."
And then Andarna sneaks in and like is holding one of the panthers in her mouth. And Violet says in her most like boss lady sassy way, like, "Now Andarna here, she doesn't eat our allies. It's a whole thing her elders are trying to teach her. But you know how adolescents are. Never really know if they feel like listening on any given day." And this whole like side plot story back and forth thing with Andarna, I feel like we've so rarely talked about it, but like how she is constantly trying to eat literally everything, and everyone, especially Taryn, is literally heard like chasing her down to like stop her from doing this. It is one of my absolute favorite things. It is 10 out of 10. I love it every single time. I think it's hilarious, and so now the fact that they're like using it in this moment is just so good. I love it. I love Andarna.
She's the best. And then this is just another note along the same lines where Violet like pulls out the dragon eggshell pieces from Andarna's egg, and it says, "A charge of energy runs up my arm and I lift my brows at the sensation." And I just am still super sus about all of these descriptions. Like, I don't know if the dragon eggs can hold some kind of power, but all of it just sounds like the way that it feels when she is channeling. So,
Well, and it's interesting that like Andarna's egg is the one that gives a charge of energy or something. Like, it makes me wonder about Andarna, since we know she's not, like, obviously the one she's getting at least the lightning from. So I don't know.
yeah, true.
Just, is it all eggs that have some sort of magic-y charge, or is she feeling like the electricity charge, or is that just how Violet
said
is used to
energy.
feeling magic?
She channels pure power.
Well, yeah, but she doesn't really know that or think that, I guess. I mean, she knows it probably intellectually, but like doesn't actually do it.
Yeah, I wish they would acknowledge that more, because Felix told her that and she's like, huh,
Interesting.
moving on. All right, so moving into chapter 28, our last chapter of this section. I'm kicking it off with the pre-chat blurb.
Pre-chap.
Blip.
That is better than
Wow.
any. We all go so big. Who knew? You just had to, simple
Go
as
small.
key. Yeah, that's it. Good job.
Anyway, this specific pre-chap on my first read, I was freaking the heck out because it's written by Asher Daxton. And the only place we've ever seen Asher is recently when we found out that that's Violet's dad's name. But this is not the first time we've seen the name Daxton. And that's why I was freaking out, because we were, at the time that I read this, we were recording the Fourth Wing episodes from book one. And in book one, the Guide to Excelling in the Scribe Quadrant is written by Colonel Daxton, and there's no first name. And so at first I thought like, oh, like Asher wrote the Guide to Excelling in the Scribe Quadrant. I don't think that now, because Asher was never a colonel. He was a lieutenant colonel. And he was still like fairly young. So I think this was probably an ascendant of his, but I was totally freaking out about that on my first read, because that name was like so fresh in my brain. So I have like some more kind of vague theories about this later, but like I don't think it was actually him, but it was interesting that I think this was his birth name, and then he took Lilith's last name when they got married. So there are some of his texts that are written from Asher Daxton, and then some that are from Asher Sorengale. But he died when he was a lieutenant colonel. He never made it to colonel, so
I want to do
class
more
dismissed.
studying. I was going to say, I want to do more studying on that myself, because I was convinced it was the same person. I guess I don't remember him dying as a lieutenant colonel over a colonel or whatever. Not that I don't believe you. You're great and amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
I do
I'll
also
text you.
find, sweet. I also find, like, not that anyone can do, obviously you can do whatever the heck you want, but traditionally, usually a girl will end up changing her last name. So I'm just like, is Xaden going to take Violet's last name if they get married? Like, is that like a regular thing in this world? Or is that just like something to do with the Sorengale name that is important that they felt like taking it? You know, like, I want to know the story or the back choices there. Like,
I also don't know if it has anything to do with like if Lilith was higher ranking than he was when they got married, and like she was a writer and she was
just
a punk.
scribe.
He did ballet. Anyway, yeah, I don't know if it had anything to do with like the quadrants that they came from, or like her rank or something. I don't know why he would have changed his name, but it was originally Daxton in his like lower ranking epigraph, I think. I can't remember what his title was here. It seems like, or well, I think one of them was, I don't know. I probably need to do more research on it too.
Yeah. I was going to say, but like, does it say for sure, or is this just two dudes named Asher?
It hasn't been that any other time in this series. There hasn't been like two people with the same first name. So I would think if it was, she's so sneaky. There's I don't see this being a coincidence. That's my assumption, I guess I should say.
Okay, well, last episode, Jon and I were convinced that the Signisan Flyer cadets were full on dead or turned venom, or I don't really know what else, just because they hadn't shown up yet. But Violet says in the 8 days that they were gone, those cadets have now arrived. And so now, like, Battle Brief is super crowded and all the things. So I was convinced they were gone. Like, when in a book are they like, oh, but they're not here yet. I'm sure everything's fine. Like, when is that ever actually fine? I guess right here. That's when. So there's that. And then I also thought it was interesting when she's like kind of recapping us, like we do this little time jump back to Basgiath. And she also says that she heard from Imogen that Imogen had that she still kept my prisoner alive. And I just thought it was really interesting that she's calling Jack her prisoner, like using that term, because obviously like she's going down there and trying to get this information from him and stuff, but we only see it the one time. So I don't know. I don't like that.
It sounded like they had been doing that like
a
consistently
lot,
though.
Yeah. I just don't like that she's talking to him at all.
Just kill him.
Well, and like, I don't know. I don't know, because she's treating Xaden a certain way, and I feel like, so is she trying to treat Jack, like, obviously, like, not the same way because they're not in a relationship, but like to treat him like as if he's a human and like going to like be fine and not he's full venom or something? Is she like, no, just kill him because it's whatever, he's a venom, but then we should be saying the same thing about Xaden?
No, I think she's literally only keeping Jack alive because she's trying to get information about how to cure venom. Like she's trying to, that's why she's like annoyed that he's not giving her any like real info, but they keep interrogating him just to see if his answers are consistent, even when his memory's erased and stuff. But I feel like if it weren't for her trying to find a cure, then they probably would have killed him because he sucks. not just because he's venom.
He sucks like a venom.
Yeah. Just had to take a quick moment here to acknowledge my boy Riddick. Is one of his most iconic lines, probably his most iconic line from the whole series, where he's trying to hit on a 30-year flyer, and he says, "I don't fuck second years," and Riddick says, "Good thing I fuck like a third." It just put Riddick, "Good thing I fuck like a third," Gamlin, everybody. I just love him. I love this for him.
He's just bed hopping. He's, ribbit, ribbit.
Ribbit. Am I right?
And then Jon kind of had a line earlier that he was like, that is just well written. And I just really appreciated this moment here where usually it's like, every head turns or, you hear like the creak of the chair. But I really like that. Like all these flyers and all these dragon riders and everybody are there. And it says, leather jackets creak in every direction as heads turn my way. And I don't know why. That was just like a cool description for me, and just imagining them all there in their cool flight leathers and stuff. Big fan of that moment.
My note here is when Violet guesses that the Venom somehow know about the Oration wards possibly failing soon. They're moving into position for that inevitability. And when she describes this, Devera agrees with her as well. I'm still kind of on this kick that someone at Basgiath is feeding them info, like something is going on. I think that could be part of the reason why, too, that like they haven't like taken Corden. Takaris might be working with him. But I would think they would want, if he's like taking them at Corden, they would want to attack them and like get kind of revenge for if he's like doing stuff to Venom. But yeah, like somebody's obviously given info on this. Especially with that big attack on Erasia too. They had simultaneous attacks like all across the border. Now I'm going to be on that watch as well.
I know, but it's like, how would you even know? Like, because if we're trusting what Jack is saying, and he's saying that, a Maven or whoever can just be undetected and they're just walking around. And, so it's like, how are we even supposed to know that so-and-so sitting next to Violet right now is actually a Maven? Like, you have no idea. And that is terrifying. Yeah. And Violet's just like, interesting information. Moves on. I was like, no, girl, you should be freaking out.
That's just what I was about to say. It's like, don't you think that should be one of your top priorities right now?
Right?
I guess they wouldn't really have any way of really finding out who is and who isn't.
Yeah. Still, though, after the beginning of this book, where they're just like walking through the halls, and then all of a sudden there's Venom everywhere, you would think that maybe the school also would have done some sort of preventative measure, or
that won't happen again.
Don't they have truth sayers? Does that work on Venom? I don't know.
True.
I feel like too.
I don't know.
A Venom could have gotten away with so much because Xaden is one, even though he's low level, and he says that he can detect Venom or whatever.
Yeah.
If a Venom wanted to, with a dragon, they're already a writer, to just suddenly be like, oh my gosh, my signet is I can detect Venom. And then they just point at other students who aren't Venom and be like, that's a Venom right there. Who are they going to believe? Like, they would just kill the other student saying, well, you say they're Venom. You've been right before. All he has to do is kill one or two Venom to prove they're right, and then start killing people who aren't Venom.
Yikes.
Yeah, but then the Venom will come after them.
No, like it's part of the...
I don't think that will last long.
No, the Venom wouldn't come after them. If a Venom kills one or two of their own as a sacrifice to be safely in the college, and then be like, now let's just kill their top hitters.
Well, and then we find out that Mira is, like, gone. She's taken her first personal leave for the first time ever in her entire career. And my note here was just like, Mira is going through it right now. Like, the last time we saw her, she was super struggling after Narelle. And, like, we learned, that she has her own legacy of her mother's to follow or whatever. And now Mira's just, like, taking time off. Like, she's going through something, and I'm so team Mira. I just love her so much, and I don't know what's going to come out of this, but I just hope that she's like, maybe she gets like a cool side book or something. I just want everyone apparently to have a side book. I just want more information on literally anything, I guess, at this point. But yeah, big fan.
Yeah. Another little, was this a spiral? Probably. This was sort of a callback to Riddick's, like, being able to freeze water in somebody's body. Like, earlier in this section, they're still in the sparring pit.
In the pit.
In the pit. And for Garrick, it says a flick of his wrist and the flames snuff out, deprived of oxygen. And my note was just that I didn't realize that this was something a wind wielder could do. But it's sort of along the same lines, I guess, as, like, Riddick freezing water in someone's body. Can Garrick just remove all of the oxygen in/around someone and suffocate them as a wind wielder?
That's what they do in Avatar. The Last Airbender.
Oh, okay. So then totally, yeah. Confirmation.
I'm just saying. I've seen it happen.
That was interesting because this is like a common signet, and so is Riddick's, but it sounds like not everybody develops their signet that way or can do stuff like that. So
I just really, 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 really can't express how many reallys I loved the moment when the entire squad is sitting there reading books together. Like, what a dream. Like, to just have a whole group hanging out, reading some books, like book club. Like, what a time to be alive with the second squad. Like, they're the best. And obviously they're like trying to learn all the things and whatever, but even like the first years come and want to read some books, and everyone's just reading books, and I loved this whole moment. And of course we get like a ton of, and I'm sure Connor's about to go into all of it, like what the actual book titles were and what little tiny things they say here and there. But I was just excited they're all sitting there reading books. Big fan. They should start a podcast. I'd listen.
You and I saw this in different ways then, because it doesn't seem like a fun book club. I pictured them like panically flipping pages, trying to find the right thing and be like, what are you reading over there? I don't know.
No, they're just all outside together, hanging out, kind of watching another class, reading some books, having a chat.
And if they fail the book club, the world ends. Is whatever.
Low stakes, cozy.
Book club.
Probably got some mood reader candles lit.
Of course, gotta set the mood.
Speaking of these books, though, it's mentioned in passing that Imogen and Quinn are reading a volume Queen Mariah sent on venom and their medicinal uses. And that's it. They don't talk about it any more than that. But, like, what does that mean? Do you guys have any, like, guesses on what that means? Like, venom for medicinal purposes?
Other than the weird tests they've clearly been having on them that they try to... I don't know.
I'm just like, if they drain magic, I don't know what medicinal purpose, or like, are they taking their blood or something?
Maybe they're seeing how vitamins work on the venom.
Maybe that's how they
vitamin.
made the stuff they gave them for RSC for the dragons.
Oh, that's interesting.
Much better than what I was going to say.
Oh, no. I think it's the vitamins, but that's a good second.
That was good. That was good.
What were you going to say, Kyle?
I was going to just say, like, it's the thing where it's like, this makeup was tested on animals, but this one, we tested this on venom first.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
And then Garrick's jaw ticks as he steps off the mat.
Oh.
So last cheers, I
Thanks.
think. Oh, it's not the last one, but a cheers nonetheless. And then I had another little signet spiral here about Bodhi this time, because it says fire erupts on the mat again. Bodhi. Fire erupts on the mat again, and it says Bodhi takes 3 quick steps onto the mat, then turns his hand, and the fire dies. And it sounds very similar to what Garrick did, like a flick of his wrist and the fire went out. So can Bodhi just wield anyone's signet if he's within range? Like, was he wielding Garrick's signet here, or was this him countering the fire signet even though it wasn't used directly against him? Like, there were 2 other people fighting, and so does that mean that he was just wielding the fire, like, from the person who did that on the mat?
I took it as that he could just like cancel out signets in general.
Yeah, how was it described the first time? That's what I was just trying to look up. Like, isn't it counter
like Bodhi's
signets?
signet?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, his signet is countering other signets. But I'm just wondering what that means and, like, how his signet can grow. Because does that mean that he can, like, detect other people's signets if he can counter them? Like, because he would have to be potentially, like, does he have to be prepared? Does he practice with other people's signets to be able to know how to counter them? Or does that just come naturally to him?
I feel like it's more of a just nullification of the signet in general. Almost like I can just choose to have, in this instance, your signet not work at this moment.
And then you're just
So-
powerless.
Yeah.
That's how I take it too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just
So
like,
this-
because we see Xaden flick a finger or move his hand to move his shadows. Like, that just seems to be, even Violet has to, like, bring her hand down to make the...
Right. Oh, that's true.
You know, so it's like with the lightning. So maybe that's just how they move the magic or move the power, make its intentions go a certain direction, you know, or something like that.
Okay, because this led me on a whole spiral of, like, can he, like, wield other people's signets? But I think it was just because of how Garrick's was described just a few lines before, and that really threw me off. My question about this, I guess, primarily was because in this chapter, Violet asks Bodhi if he has a second signet or what his second signet is. And he says, don't have one, just like Xaden. But if he can counter other people's signets, is he like aware that he's doing that? Like if Xaden tried to read his intentions with his second signet and Bodhi could counter it, like does that mean that he's aware of whatever the signet is that's being used on him, even if he hasn't been told about what it is? Because I would feel like he would have to know.
I guess the question then would be, yeah, A, does he know that a signet is being used on him? But then the next one would be, could he counter 2 signets at a time? Is that how his power would grow? Like if someone's blasting him with fire from one side and someone's hitting him with lightning from another, could he hold both hands out and turn both off?
Ooh,
or is it just like when he uses it, all signets within a certain range around him can't touch him? But
right.
there's a lot.
Or he
to
could
that.
put a timer on you, like he uses
Yeah.
it, and now it's not only
timeout power.
now, but for the next like 12
Timeout
hours.
signet.
Yeah.
Well, like, could he, if Garrick tried to like distance wield away from him, could he prevent him from doing that?
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't think, in my head, the way it is that he literally, I don't want to say reaches inside, but like wherever your signet is held in your person, and he just like turns off the light, like the switch.
Yeah.
And you no longer can use that until he decides to let go of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nothing to do with him like using to like grab or whatever like he was using with the air. It was literally like he just like turned it off with the
Right.
fire.
And
so same with-
turned his
with-
hand, turn it down a
Yeah,
knob.
and so same with Garrick. Like if he could literally just be like, nope, you're not going anywhere, and Garrick doesn't have that power because Bodhi has decided to turn that off. That
I
is
just
how
still
have
feel
to
like
read it.
he's lying. I feel like he knows and he has a second signet.
I also agree that he has a second signet. I just feel like the
Okay.
way he says it feels like he's trying to, like, I took it as when he says, I don't have one, just like Xaden. I wasn't taking that as him saying like he knows Xaden does. I was taking it as him trying to say he doesn't, but since Violet knows Xaden has a second one, we like caught Bodhi in the lie about himself
Oh.
more than him saying it about Xaden. You've taken it
Yeah.
like other way where like we know Xaden has a second signet, and so Bodhi must know that too. And I took it as Bodhi's trying to lie that he doesn't have one, but since Violet knows that, she caught him in the lie, kind of a thing.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. I think he was trying to lie and failed. I think he was trying. I don't think anybody knows that he has a second signet, but I think he does.
Yeah, but I don't think that he knows Xaden does. You do.
Oh, yes.
That's
okay,
the
yeah.
difference here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he does. And in fact, that was my note, is that I kind of forgot that nobody else knows except for Violet. Because usually the marked ones know everything before Violet does.
Right.
And this
Yeah.
is like supposedly the only information that she knows and nobody else does. So I guess it comes down to, who do you trust? Are we trusting Xaden? Are we trusting Bodhi?
I don't trust.
Do we trust
I don't
Violet?
think I trust Bodhi. I'm
Do we
suspicious
trust-
of him.
Don't trust
I am
anybody.
also suspicious of Bodhi, but
Don't trust any Bodhi.
any Bodhi. Yeah. In fact, the only person we're supposed to trust is Mira, according to Ash.
Oh, that's very true.
So,
Yeah. And I do trust Asher.
and I trust Mira. So,
Well,
at
there
us
you
go.
go.
I said I'm Team Sorengale. I'm still
Yeah.
a little skeptical of Brennan with whatever rune thing he's got going on his hand, but like Lilith is on the good side, and I am Team Sorengale.
My next notes were about Sloane. Whenever she's sort of arguing to get in the group and Dane shows up, she argues him, her cheeks flushing a second before her narrowed gaze drops away from Dane. And my literal note was, oh? And then her next little thing she says is, asshole, she whispers, then the flush in her cheeks deepens, referring to Dane. And I just wrote, oh, something's going on there.
I love this.
Well, even Violet notices, and she says,
Mm-hmm.
I lift my brows at the look she shoots him, mostly because I can't tell if she wants to stab him in his seat or... And then Garrick, it's almost like Garrick finishes her sentence where he says, fuck. Where it's almost as if he finishes her sentence, but instead, because Violet doesn't complete it in her head, and it's very funny to me, but I feel like that's totally a thing as well. I'm with you
Yeah.
there, Kyle.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because he's like third year and she's a first year again. He's a wing
Yeah.
leader. The
Jeez.
whole thing. It's literally just history repeating itself there. And for Dane to be all like codex.
Yeah.
Just
Going up
saying.
against it.
And then a muscle flexes an Oryx jaw. We haven't talked
Oryx.
about him this whole time, but I love him. Here we go.
He should be around more often.
Yeah, he should.
And then Violet is thinking, she says, "This is even better," and Xaden finishes her sentence. Than sex, she says, "I find myself nodding instead of lecturing him about reading my intentions. But that wasn't blah, blah, blah." She continues. And I was like, this is like the 5th time you've noticed it and you're still playing it off. ... Ramifications.
Yep.
Oh, it's going to end poorly. And then Khan had a note here asking what it meant that Xaden's gold flecks are amber now. And I just wrote here like it means that red has been added to the gold flecks, making them amber.
It's one of those things. I don't know why that didn't register in my head.
No, that makes sense.
And then finally, the girl turning venom like right on the mat in front of everyone, and Carr just immediately killing her, like pretty wild, but it's not what I was expecting.
I forgot that there was like stuff like that happened in the last chapter. So I was like, oh, like John's passed the, the head on the platter and whatever else. And then he came out and he was like, she's venom?
You're like, who?
Yeah, literally.
I was surprised that Pan chick was there because isn't he like even over Atos? So why was he just like at class?
Watching what his weapons could do.
I guess.
Panchek was there?
Yeah, he's the one who yells like, "Carr, kill him," or whatever. And then Carr goes over there.
Kill him, Carr. Ooh, kill him.
Get him.
Ooh, kill him.
I don't know. I was just like, why don't you have like a more important job or something? But whatever.
Yeah.
No, that's the great thing about being higher up in the army is you really don't have crap to do.
You're just gonna sit around and
you sit at a desk and you tell other people to do it.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the last note that we have from this section is the quote, "She's turning right in front of us, or has she been one of them all along? Xaden would have sensed her, right? He was just here, or would she have sensed him?" And I think John and I talked about that a little bit, but like maybe Xaden read her intentions, like knew that she was about to turn and left before she followed through so she wouldn't sense him.
For me, something like this, especially since she like immediately was killed, it seems like this was her first attempt and she was just like trying to save herself, and maybe she just didn't realize what she was doing until it was too late, and then it was like, oh no.
To me though, like the way that Carr acted, like this was the way you're supposed to do this job. And obviously we know that he's not been the best teacher, at least for Violet and stuff. Yeah. And he was a part of the whole, like, her almost to burnout with Varish. It makes me wonder how many times he has done this. Like, is he Venom? Is he doing this on purpose? Is he convincing them to change? And then he, like, is like, ha ha ha, now you're stuck this way, and now you're, like, one of my minions or something.
Yeah, I forgot that he was the one that killed that Intensic kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, like, any time somebody, like, starts to wield or whatever, they go see Carr, and then he, like, conveniently is taking Violet like so far away, obviously because she's lightning and stuff, but like where's he taking all these other individuals to go and practice their signet and stuff, and then how far is he pushing them, because he was obviously okay with, to a certain extent, how far Varish pushed Violet. And I don't know. I've never trusted Carr.
Yeah, the higher up in rank that people who are possibly Venom could be does sort of change things, because that could be like the sole reason that they were like, yeah, we have to kill Intensix, because all the Venom and administration knew.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, totally believe that. Not just because they're Venom, but even either because they're Venom or they think they're trying to hide the Venom secret.
Yeah.
Like, depending on how brainwashed they are one way or the other.
Right.
That's 100% why Intensix are killed. But if Xaden is full Intensic, then he should be able to find this out about people. Of what they are. So... as long as he doesn't continue to turn full Venom or whatever. That becomes a big part of it. So.
Surely not.
Yeah. Xaden? Never.
Our Xaden! Okay, that is the end of our chapter section. So we are moving on to some questions. What are your current character thoughts, gentlemen, as you're reading this for your first time?
Takaris is such a prick. Like, what a little backstabbing gossip. Only looking out for himself, really, I feel like. Warns them about not sharing who they are and about any deals they make, and then he's the one that basically tells Cortland what she is. And speaking of Cortland, he is something else, man. I mean, wow, really. It kind of seems like we won't see much more of him other than that moment, but I don't know. Like, something about how it was written makes me think there was some mostly finality in dealing with him, but I gotta say the man knows how to be dramatic, something I can appreciate. But that dude is off the chain, like mentally, and
off the chain.
And again, what's the deal with him looking 40 years younger than they were expecting? Like magic or just like poor research for them?
Yeah.
Botox.
Yeah, Botox, something.
Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline.
Continue to love and appreciate Riddick more and more, really the whole gang. And now the
Yes.
first years are getting in on helping him out. Love it. And I kind of mentioned this previously, but I hope they're keeping an eye on Jack. Like, the guy still hasn't died, FYI. Like, he's still around, and he's still a Venom.
I will say Taryn had his moments in this section, as always. There was one specifically where, like, Endar was like, "You never tire of hearing your voice, do you?" And he was like, "Nope, don't. It does. I don't get tired of it." So I think he still remains my favorite. But can't deny, yes, Riddick shined through in this read. He got a bit serious, a bit of growth, did it with his classic Riddick swagger. I feel like I wanted to get more, or I wanted to expect more out of Halden. But we already got like a redemption arc that we're still sort of in mid-swing with Dane, so I don't think it would happen again in the same way that we don't like too many resurrections, too many people gaining redemptions. It would all sort of be a bit much. Xaden is, I don't know. It's been a while since he's done anything noteworthy for me, honestly. Like, he's just been there, and he's been not doing well.
Yeah.
It is something well on that table, but yeah, I understand.
Ooh.
All right. Thoughts and theories as we go into the rest of Onyx Storm.
I think they might find the seventh breed in like the last possible moment that they could find them.
Like of the book, or just like of the storyline of this book?
Yeah, like maybe there's going to be like an attack happening, or, you know, the leadership is about to send somebody to come find them or come after them or something. And they're like, "Oh, we better hurry." And then they find it. But I feel like some stuff could go a little sideways when they do. I think communication might be a big issue, obviously. And if Xaden's with them, like, I don't know if they're going to be able to... I don't know if he's going to still go with them to the Isles, like, when they search. And if they're even going to be able to tell that he's Venom. I feel like somehow they'll be able to. And maybe even not even, like, letting him leave or wanting to kill him or something. I don't know. I also don't foresee them helping them in any way either, just because it's like they left for a reason. They're over here in the Isles where there's like no magic. They're like happy being away from all that crap that's going on the continent. Like, I don't know, I can just see them being like, "No, we're good. We're going to stay over here. Like, good luck. We'll give you some information, but that's about it. Everything else you got to do by yourself."
I feel like something else has to go awry with the college, like more political BS or what have you. And they'll use aggressive diplomacy to get their way, basically. I'm sure that, yeah, they'll find the seventh breed, sort of just a matter of time and convenience there. I am pretty sure after a little gag about proposing that Xaden and Violet will marry at some point in the series, if not this book. I'm also pretty sure I'm not a fan of it, due to Xaden, mostly. And I really hope it's not one of those things where it's like, "We're about to die, marry me before we die so we can be together." I hate that. But anyway, it's also been a few months just since Xaden has been on my like good list at all, or even my neutral list. A long
months
time.
Months in the book or months in real life?
Both at this point, I guess. I'd also love to see like smaller things. Like we said, Sawyer finding a cool way to use his metal prosthetic, Violet's new signet, more meetings with Stephanie. It'd also be really interesting if she truly did have, like, she keeps saying, like, "Oh, I have the knowledge you need, Violet," in her notes that she leaves her. It'd be interesting if she actually did and maybe tries to make some sort of deal with her for it. But yeah, that's all I got.
All right. That takes us to the cry counter. Nobody cried this episode, I don't think.
Oh,
So,
that means I'm
Connor's
still in the lead.
Winning. Whoop, whoop. Good job, Connor. I'm so proud of you.
Yay.
Go team.
Thank you.
I'll try to cry next time. I'll try
Thank
to
you.
push him out just so that we can be tied. I was like, cry.
Come on, Tears.
Come on, damn it. This is for Connor.
Well, that's a wrap on this week's episode.
What an ending.
Next week, we'll be continuing Onyx Storm with chapters 29 to 40. If you're watching on YouTube and you're not subscribed yet, baby girl, what are you doing? Please subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Oh, you're still lurking? Love that for you. But if you're craving even more bookish drama, sprint on over to BetweenPagesAndFriends.com. Our Patreon is basically the literary version of a villain monologue, unhinged, dramatic, and absolutely necessary. Plus, we've got merch that'll have your bookshelf side-eyeing you with jealousy, and an Amazon storefront stocked with every impulsive TBR edition you'll regret at 3 a.m. And hey, we're not saying fictional men are the answer to all your problems, but they're definitely not the answer. Until next time, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and stay blessed.
Stay blessed, y'all.
Not the answer.